was two written additions, from packet that. One for Evergreen Cemetery and another for liaison stuff for LCPC for the equalization grant.
Actually,
Okay.
the first one would be brief discussion of flood buyouts. Put that up. Basically, the second one would be the November 18th minutes. There's state proposed and adopt a corrected set of minutes. Because I think it would be better to have, I mean, we could put it in this set of minutes.
Would be twice. Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. That's the best way to do it. Otherwise you have two wrong. They're floating, two different sets floating out there. Yeah.
Well, that's meeting. And the minutes. Because we don't have minutes.
I'll add those towards the end. Crazy pressing, we have some members of the audience here.
Add a quick update on dogs for the dog situation in Hyde Park. Possible action, but hopefully not.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do it at the very end. Yeah.
Like midnight.
Way late.
How brief the discussion Duncan on buyouts?
Very brief.
Okay. We got. I have scheduling a meeting for the budget.
Oh yeah.
We planning to do that before the end of the year.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but let's go to the printing press on the 15th of January.
That's the target. We have two more meetings after tonight. I think last year it went on the 27th. That it has to be there. She's not. Her and I are meeting on Thursday to run through all the reserves and everything and to do a comb over of everything that's done.
Yeah, it's a statutory.
The warning has, yeah, it's the warning has to be out 30 days. So that's February 7th or something, I don't know, 8th.
But
Yeah. And then it's the printing press because the town reports have to be printed and in hand 10 days before town meeting.
That's the holdup.
That's the printer, yeah, because we're competing with every other town. Yeah.
anyway. Peter?
Executive session. Employee evaluation.
Any other? See none. Do you want to over your additions that are in printed form now?
Yeah, the liaison to LCPC, Tasha's going to help clarify better than I did even. So if we can probably do that with the LCPC presentation and requests. Is that okay?
The second one, yeah. LCP station. Yep, there. And the cemetery one.
Yeah, that one we could bang out. It's not too complicated. Yeah.
Use.
We're covering.
Yeah.
Do you want to be a sexton?
Yeah, I noticed you volunteered. No, but it's okay.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
there's nobody else who has any understanding of these cemeteries. That's the issue.
And it would be.
Getting getting policies and procedures in place so that it never has to come back to the board would be huge. I mean, we're at a generational switch here. In the next 10 years, I think we're going to see a lot of activity as the baby boomers who start to move on. And I'm not saying that they're going to live forever, Duncan, but I think there's no coincidence this is starting to come up more and more, right? And so if we have those procedures in place, the next select board or administrator doesn't have to worry. Just
My thought. Does everybody get it? Lots. My thought. Advertise. You'd like me, but if we got out something on front porch forum, Facebook, something, if there was some interest.
Can then make it essentially.
Saxton's. I'm not sure. In some towns have their committees.
Yeah.
Give it. Recruiting members for committees.
Committee, not so much passion. Creative committee.
You know, one way or the other, I mean, the select board has taken the role responsibility of being the full agent of cemeteries each and every year.
Yeah.
I think the advantage of having Saxton, whether me or somebody else, is that they could do the day-to-day stuff with Tom, like actually go out and put stakes where they need to go. And, you know, you guys have.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm good with that. So. That's the. But there was no.
Yeah.
Evergreen legend. Couple recently with other cemeteries, but
Yeah.
you know, that's.
And then the next thing is that sod scraper. I think we're gonna be active, getting. If you're not going to form a commission that's independent of the select board, then the select board should start authorizing purchasing the tools necessary for the job.
So
This is supposed to be.
yeah, but my way. So the new cemetery. That's those. We authorized Tom to do deeds. It's really the old cemetery. And the old cemetery is a little bit in places because it certainly looks like there's depressions in the ground with no headstones. And in those cases, the board has certainly wanted to trim away the sod. And if you do that, you can see in the ground, and usually you can see like a line where the soil was disturbed, where the grave was dug, because the soil never goes back in the same way that you took it out,
So
right?
you kind of go across the grave.
You go across the graves with the sod cutter, and you can normally see or usually see an actual line or different coloration in the soil. If you see that, that's a strong indicator there's a grave there. In this particular case, I just don't think, it's really close to the new section. It's like one row from the new section. So it was the last, it was the last area of the old section to be, dare I use the word built out? Used, filled, yeah.
So you would think that that would actually have gravestones,
That what?
that area would have gravestones.
Yes.
It's the most recent.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, all of the stones in that immediate area are like 1960, 1970.
Yeah.
And this one is sandwiched between a 1960 and a 1971 stone, something like that. So on that particular grave, I don't see a particular need to dig the sod
Right.
and remove it. There are definitely others that you would want to do that. So the reason we might want to buy the sod cutter is in the past, the board has had the person wanting to buy the lot actually rent the sod cutter, remove the sod, but then I had to witness it. So that you could, so that I could come back to the board. I wasn't on the board at the time. I would come back to the board and say, yeah, it looks like it's clean, ready to go. Or conversely, no, I think there's a grave there. So buying the sod cutter and having the sexton do that would sort of remove the step of the individual being responsible to do that. I think that's a good idea and we should do that, but it's really a board decision.
What does a sod cutter scraper cost?
I looked them up real quickly and it was between $350 and $500, and they're a push type thing. They look like a hand cultivator, but it's basically a roll in the front with a knife that literally cuts a 12-inch strip of sod.
It's well within our procurement policy, I say. Go for it.
Yeah,
Do you need a formal motion for $500?
I think it's whatever Tom put it
I
in,
think
because
it's more of a theoretical discussion of, do you want to stay responsible for the cemeteries? Yes, I'll buy it, or no, we need to form a commission and release this responsibility. I mean, we haven't had a cemetery that's open in a while until we just assumed Evergreen, so we have all these new problems, and we have to put time off, put in bed, and this is the first step, if you want to do it, or do we go to a commission?
What commission's interested?
It's a statutory role, cemetery commissions. It's like a conservation commission or a planning commission. It would release the select board of all responsibility of cemeteries.
Except for it would be a town commission, so.
it requires a town vote too. So if you wanted to do it, we'd have to put a question on the warning. Will the voters authorize the establishment of a cemetery commission?
Do you think there'll be a lot of traction?
I don't, and personally, I don't think, I wouldn't, you could have a committee or a commission. The commission is the statutory piece that Tom is talking about. There are a lot of towns that have done it years ago. Since we just have one cemetery that's open for burials, I don't see the.
Warrenville
advantage of it.
had, numerous cemeteries on Pleasant View.
Right,
And so, I don't know if they still do it or not, but years ago, I was a commissioner. What happened was that people that had numerous relatives in certain cemeteries would be the commissioner for that particular cemetery. So my cemetery was Riverside Cemetery, which was by the library in Morrisville. Because I have a lot of relatives in that cemetery. So it was our job to check on it, report on it, everything else, but most of the cemeteries like you're talking about, they're kind of closed anyway, because you can't, there's no more room. I still had lots in my section of the Riverview Cemetery. And then naturally Pleasant View was underneath the purview of the select board.
Throw a crazy idea out there. We just get an underground locator to come and see if there's somebody in the ground.
Well, that doesn't work
well,
unless you had a ground penetrating radar.
ground penetrating radar, and it's pretty
Yeah,
expensive.
the GPR.
Yeah.
100 and something around or whatever it is.
Long term, I think it would be wise to survey the whole thing, the old and the new, accurately locate each grave, and as you say, long term, you could do ground penetrating radar and actually determine where there might be graves, and then you wouldn't have to go through but it's going to be an expensive process to do that.
The sod cutter works good because to me, it's no different than trying to find a water line or sewer line in an area. You just take your backhoe and just scrape along the top, and
Yep.
then it's very easy to see where the ditch line was. And it's the same deal with a grave.
So you laughed about 5 minutes. So the immediate action I think the board needs to take tonight is authorize Tom to issue a deed for this specific lot.
Could you prepare a motion for that? I believe you had one.
I think Tom did you have a motion or did I have a motion? I can't remember.
It wasn't on the agenda. It came in too late.
I think I might have had two motions actually.
A
Potentially.
potential action item would be to authorize the sale of the lot in the old section with the condition that if, when digging, the purchaser of the lot or their representatives sees any indication of prior burial, they immediately cease digging and notify the town.
I would make that motion. Do you have it, Donna?
There's a motion and I think Peter beat Mike on second on that one.
Wow.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And the ayes have it.
And really, the second question is, are we gonna require removal of the sod for that as a condition of sale?
Yeah,
So we try out that new scraper.
We could, but we could try it out on a grave that has much more likelihood of, I mean, I'm fine with doing it. I don't care. You guys can make that a condition of the sale if you want.
what do you think?
I don't think it's necessary
Okay,
in this. If I thought it was, I would absolutely say so, because I would really not want to bury somebody on top of somebody else. Or disturb
I don't think.
someone
anyone
else's
does.
grave.
Yeah. All right. I guess we're moving on.
That good?
I'm happy, rest of the board's happy. Next item up is reviewing invoices and orders, which are going around. Don't hear any questions on that. Next item up is public comment. Is there any public comment?
They do a great job.
Rowdy crowd tonight. Next item up is select board issues or concerns. Are there any issues or concerns from the select board? I heard the Jubilee was really nice. Again, not an issue or a concern, but. Throw it up there. Next item up is accepting the resignation of Rick Opperly from the select board committee. I thought we were doing resignation or ski.
Skate park.
Yeah,
If he's resigning from the select board, you would,
I would hope so. I was confused because I thought we were doing all resignations in our first meeting of the month, but. I would entertain a motion from the board.
So move, Mr. Chairman, to accept the resignation of Rick Opperly from the skate park committee.
Second.
Thank you. Motion second, further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Next up. Is Randall's report. I believe we all received last week. Sorry, I'm trying to get to it in the packet.
Is Randall on the,
Yes.
Yeah, he's right there. You're usually blacked out, Randall.
Until it's my time to speak and yeah, and then unfortunately the face comes out.
Hopefully your vacation went well. There are two action items. Would the board like to handle the easy one first?
which one's the easy one?
Okay.
I think approving the expense for the CEDS to attend the VCDA Winter Conference.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
A second.
Okay, reimbursing $148 in related expenses. There's a motion. Was that your motion?
Yes, it was.
Was that the motion you seconded, Duncan?
Yes.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Right.
All those opposed?
I expect a good report back on this.
The next item up
Noted.
is It's funny with Zoom, he's moving around
He
sometimes
is
because
moving
somebody
around.
else joined the meeting. I'm
Yeah.
looking for you in your last spot, right?
You were replaced by Scott.
The next
Done.
suggested motion is to approve the revisions to the existing contract with Mumley, which would revise the contract with Mumley by
30,000.
30,000 even. We would go from 46,500 to 76,500.
Hey.
And most of those, they're all laid out, highlighted. I think the big gulp of that is the update to the Act 250 land use permit.
Do we want a clean contract signed or are we okay with just this?
Huh?
We want a clean contract or just a revised?
This is the revised contract that was sent. I don't see a problem with it. What would the board like to do?
Are you happy with that, Mr. Chairman?
They trying to remember back.
Define happy.
I,
Well, it's kind of a big.
I can think of things that would make me happier.
Going in, there was some knowns that there would be some changes. I don't know how much was really expected. I think they came for a change order back when we were up at the college. Didn't they?
Well, they wanted to, yeah, there was, and then I think it got dropped. There's one thing that's in there that I think was discussed at the original approval. And that was a survey of the property, and I thought we approved $11,000 to do the survey, which was not included in the original 46 and is now included in this proposed contract. So that's, but it's at 9,000. So they've incorporated the survey into the overall
Did we
contract.
approve that 11,000?
I thought we did, but maybe we didn't.
And that would have been when we were meeting up college.
No, that was here. That was quite a while ago.
That was pre 2023 flood.
Yeah.
I thought the only contract we had with them, and Randall could correct me if I'm wrong, I thought it was just the 46.5.
Well, that could be, and I guess my point would be though, if during that time, there was a discussion of the need for an $11,000 boundary survey. I'm pretty sure that about the 11,000, I might be wrong about that. But the bottom line is that survey number is now included in this draft amended contract, so it's not exactly 30,000. You know, we knew that there was going to be a cost associated with doing a boundary.
You know, we don't approve this tonight, till we find out the answers to these questions.
Could be, Randall, have you got any feedback on any of these items in the draft contract?
The two pieces that I can sort of speak to is that the boundary piece was one that Mumley had flagged because there was multiple revisions as we were discussing it before it made its way to you. And there was a little bit of a groan when they said, oh, this was a thing that we know that select board was aware of. It kind of dropped off the radar and it wasn't included in subsequent discussions. Like when they came back to you, remember they came back and they said, here's all these additional costs. At that time, they didn't flag it in that conversation, but they said that they had discussed it with you, or, that it had been a known cost previously, but it had just dropped out of discussion. So that's what I know about that piece. I don't think there was an existing contract. They've never mentioned that. And the other piece, just for the revised contract piece, the decision there to have a revised contract rather than a newer contract, if you will, is because of the nature of the NBRC piece. The work that Mumley's doing is kind of clean right now. But if we went back and issued a new contract, it could kind of raise a flag that we're like using a contractor without following the proper procedure. So we're kind of Pat Ripley's and LCPC's suggestion was to simply amend the contract and work with it as an amended contract for already already contracted work rather than creating a new contract, which could flag it as if we were initiating new services rather than just updating the previous contract to be more inclusive of the total services offered.
And I do think a lot of these are actually the possible additional costs that we had in a spreadsheet.
Certainly some of them are, yeah. I think
You know, the complete
Traffic
detailed
study,
traffic study for $16,000, which oddly enough, we carried $16,000 for
construction layout and inspection.
construction cost estimates. Construction layout, inspection.
Duncan, is this survey go just a perimeter survey?
I'm assuming, but I don't know, maybe Randall does, I'm assuming that it would actually survey out the lots as well.
That would be,
Not just a perimeter survey.
do you know, Randall, is this just a perimeter or is this a lot survey also?
I honestly don't recall. I don't know that it's a lot layout. I'm not sure that it is.
My only thought for what it matters is that I just had a survey done, me and theirs, speedy and quick nowadays. They come with their GPS, they just. And it was just a couple $1,000. So I'm just wondering about the cost of this being 11,000. Would make sense if it were doing lots. They were dividing it up, that would make more sense. If it's just a perimeter survey. Just seems maybe a little bit more expensive than I would expect. Number 10 in the contract boundary survey. Preparation of the subdivision. Plan, I'm assuming that is.
Flat, it's
Or it is,
survey term.
okay,
It's setting property markers.
so maybe that is. Internal. Lots, plan.
That P word.
Well, if it's a subdivision plat, that would by definition include the lots. I think.
Question answered for me then.
Are you ready to make the motion?
Given everything that Evan has reminded me of, when we looked at the bond cost, what we were gonna need for money. Almost all of those things that are included in here are included in there. So we were anticipating spending this money. Basically, I think that's what you're pretty much saying.
I didn't have the time to figure out the exact figure. But the $30,000. The contract revision is, most of it is encompassed in the extra $58,000. In possible additional costs.
So given that, I would make a motion to approve the amended proposed contract, amended contract.
Hold second.
All right, there's a motion, a second. Is there any further discussion? I have a question. There's no signature line, so do you just need approval, Randall, or should we authorize? You're already authorized to sign, aren't you, Duncan? That's grant related.
I'm authorized to sign NBRC stuff, but not this.
Could we get a revision to the motion to authorize somebody to sign if need be?
Yes, so I would amend my original motion to authorize either the board chair or the town administrator to sign the amended contract.
The seconder,
Yep.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Right?
All those opposed?
Nay,
Duncan? How do you vote?
I was an aye.
Yeah,
nay,
Aye.
the ayes have it. Okay. I believe that covers the two motions, or two items that Randall needed some action on. Does the board have any questions about other items in Randall's report? Seeing none, is there anything else you want to highlight, Randall, or would you like to have a nice dinner?
The only thing I will cite is just that there was a meeting today at the town offices about with the folks from the village about sewer and water connections, and with the fire department in terms of hydrant placement, et cetera, and all of that went pretty smoothly. The fire department just requested moving one hydrant and adding an additional hydrant, and yeah, the biggest concern at this point is sewer capacity from a power interruption standpoint. And so they're going to run some numbers on that to determine, basically we were doing it the wrong way. We weren't doing it the wrong way. The best way to do it would be to say, what is the total capacity, and go from there. And so basically it's just a matter of whether or not there may need to be a generator installed, because state regs will say that you have to have a means of pumping this material out if the power goes out. Right now, it's enough that it can hold whatever the inflow is, but with the addition of the businesses and whatnot up there, it may mean that you have to have a generator so that it can move, because the tank may not be big enough to hold everything. So they're going to run those numbers, and that will settle that issue essentially.
Okay,
So an alternative to a generator would be to expand the holding capacity at the pumping station. So
Well, that would be an alternative, but I don't think that's an alternative that anybody was interested in pursuing. Basically, the idea, I think, is outside of food usage, if there was some kind of like brewery or something up there, I think that's when there's a potential strain on the system that would be challenging. Short of that, I think it's already at a point, it sounds like, based on what they were discussing, that would be, there's already a comfortable allowance. It's just the numbers that were the modeling was based on 10,000 gallons a day. I think that's been the working assumption. I don't know exactly where they came up with that number, but that was the number that has been the working assumption. The problem is that a food business, high volume production facility might use half of that capacity. So that was why they were wanting to make sure and run the numbers, just to see how flexible, you could be with tenancy. Because it may mean that, if you don't want to invest all this money, and the generators sounded like it wasn't that in the scope of the project costs, not that much money. They were saying something like $50,000 installed. So if $50,000 is the thing that's going to greatly expand the potential uses up there, that's a pretty good bang for your buck.
the alternative two would be to defer those costs to the high use yield or the high use user, to have them contribute to the costs. Possibly, right? Maybe.
Possibly, but again, you can also just control, the town has control over who goes in there, and if there's a potential use case, you may say, we just want someone in there, so we don't care. But you might say, oh, you're going to eat up half of the capacity here, so maybe we're going to wait and see if there's a less intensive user in this, for the site. I mean, again, this is all hypotheticals at this point.
Yeah, I guess part of the reason I raised that is that it may be something we want to consider
Mhm.
as we come up with criteria for sales of the lots.
Yeah. Not something that needs to be purchased today.
Yeah.
It's something that needs to be planned.
And it might be something that we want to maybe prorate, because the high user may be the first person or the last person coming in. And would it be fair to say, oh, you tip us over 10,000 gallons? You pay.
That, yeah, you're absolutely right. The reality is that, like in all other regulatory processes, it's the one that triggers that threshold that pays. That that may not be the right way to do it, but it's how it's often done. Last one in.
Pays the most.
I had one question or something that at least the board should think about. Two things, quickly, Randall, you had Pomerlo is exploring other options due to Shaw's withdrawal of interest, and that's in regard to the FEMA Swift Current application. Have they given any indication to yourself or the state that they're withdrawing, or I guess it would actually be us withdrawing the application for Swift Current funding?
I sent an email to the state rep, the person at the state level with Drew CC'd asking, is this application done once and for all? The state rep predictably said that they would defer to Pomerlo to say one way or the other, and I have not heard one way or the other from Pomerlo. So I have not received an official notification from Pomerlo that they are they're no longer interested in us pursuing that application, as their proxy.
All right, well, I guess we should try and figure that one out at some point. The other piece that I had, well, Randall is still on the line here. He's got revolving loan fund. I just want everybody to understand that the state has basically said what I was worried about, that they may want to try and claw back the funds if we don't provide evidence or a plan showing that we're loaning the money. Now, I know this board had fairly recently decided not to use the funds to offset funds for the industrial park. But in worst case scenario, we could loan the money to ourselves, satisfy the requirements of VCDP in terms of loaning money out. So I guess it's a heads up that this is out there. Randall's working with a potential person who might want to borrow from the fund. But as he points out, these criteria for loaning this stuff out is, we're basically in competition with the village at this point for their revolving loan fund. Villages is a lot easier, right, to deal with than ours is. And we're going to continue to run into those kinds of problems. So just, I guess, a heads up. If we don't, and Randall's still working on this for sure, but if we're unsuccessful, if the state wants to play hardball on this and we're faced with them clawing the funds back, we may need to revisit our decision to.
Is there a benefit to bonding the entire amount and then borrowing against ourselves at 0% interest to make a single principal payment of 170, like an enormous principal payment that would reduce the amount of interest we pay over the term of the loan? So that way, it would save us tens of thousands, if not. Yeah.
I thought we had that idea in the past and it was answered that it couldn't be reimbursed.
I think that's the issue, is that when we use the funds, we have to be able to demonstrate that we're actually using those funds not to pay back a note, but for actual construction of things. So it's a great idea. I'd love to be able to do it, but I'm not sure we could.
I mean, at the very least, cash flow wise, for all MDRC, I believe, is a reimbursement grant. That's And so we're gonna have to float almost $2 million before we get anything back. And so this, just having that for cash flow in the beginning for some of these engineering costs would be invaluable, because we're just gonna have to, this project is gonna be multi-years. In the first years, we're not gonna see a penny of that, and we're not gonna be able to really, we're gonna budget an expense and a revenue to match it, right? Because we know we're getting a 50% match, but it's in another calendar year or another fiscal year. So using all these expenses that fall in 2026, FY26 we're planning for now, using the loan fund for that would protect a lot.
Yeah, I hope you're wrong about that, my suspicion is, and I suppose we should find this out to be absolutely sure, but I think if we get a bill of $100,000, that we can pay that bill and ask for 50% reimbursement from NBRC.
That would be really nice to know that, yeah, really.
So I'm certainly hoping that we don't have to spend the full amount in order to get reimbursed for half of it.
Should we have Randall get to the bottom of that?
I guess, do you understand the question, Randall?
Yeah, I do. My understanding is comports with yours, Duncan. I think it's like most grants where you get an invoice, you pay it, and then you get a reimbursement for half of whatever you paid, as long as it's a qualifying expense. That's my understanding, but I can confirm that.
LCPC's understanding as well.
Yes, we've had several NBRC
Great.
grants.
Yeah.
And again, to clarify, in a certain sense, the RLF usage with this project, in a certain way, that ship has sailed at the point at which we told the folks at CDBG that we were not going to borrow from it in order to help fund this project, because the whole complicated bit was the NEPA reporting piece needed to be coordinated with CDBG throughout this process in order for that to happen. So the point at which we told them that the RLF was not going to be used is the point at which those things became disengaged. So, I mean, we actually discussed this at the meeting today. I was just making them aware that I had notified meaning when I say them, I mean LCPC, Pat, and Pat Ripley, that I had notified CDBG that we were not going to be using the RLF for this project.
And I totally get that, and I understand the complexities of it. However, if we're faced with giving the money back, or begging forgiveness from VCDP, I'm all in favor of begging forgiveness from VCDP and borrowing the money. So
Same here.
Maybe there's another place.
Yeah, and I should clarify that it has not been ruled out. The idea of potentially using the RLF funds as a recruitment tool for the property is different than borrowing it to use for, the thing that can join them with the NEPA review, my understanding is the point at which it was that we're going to borrow from the RLF to help finance the project itself. It may be that is completely divorced from using the RLF in the future as a potential incentive to recruit businesses to build there. That may be a separate entity altogether. I don't know that has been ruled out. And I forgot to mention, because it wasn't in the report, it happened. I talked to Pat Ripley about the whole housing piece, the discussion you all had, and how do we float the idea to NBRC, et cetera. And I don't know if you all recall, a while back, there was a little confusion about an inquiry about housing with NBRC at one point. And I did inquire, this was in May, there was this little bit of confusion about whether or not I should ask them about housing or not. And before it was established that I was not supposed to do that, I had already asked them. So in a way, it was kind of good, if you recall way back when, because I did get an answer from NBRC in May, where they had sort of indicated twofold thing, where they said, well, housing doesn't appear anywhere in your application, and we like to know exactly how what the project is actually going to entail that we're financing. But the more important piece of that was that they said, whether whether the infrastructure that we help you pay for is used for community development, parenthetically housing, or whether it's used for economic development, parenthetically businesses, is not something we're concerned with as long as the money's not being used to connect those businesses or homes to the infrastructure. Building the infrastructure out, fine. Can't use NBRC money to connect them. That's on those entities. So I forwarded that to Pat. Pat read it same way I did, and then I revisited that email back to NBRC with those bits highlighted, reminding them that we had this discussion, that they had said essentially, that they don't care what's connected to it. I mean, that's not how they worded it. They worded it very carefully, but anyway, and I just haven't heard back. It's only been a couple of days, so but I do not anticipate it being an issue.
How much of the light industrial park is there any of it in the village?
It's almost all in
Almost
the
all,
village.
2 lots.
So
are-
so the revolving loan fund, if we were gonna use that to entice somebody to come to the light industrial park, again, we would be up against the village rule.
Except for 2 lots.
Except for 2 lots, it probably at the far end of it.
Yeah, on the west end.
No, just because you had mentioned that I assume their fund is larger, I remember.
It's not.
It is
It's Rosemary could answer that for sure, but at one point in time, I don't know what they have now, but I think they had about 150, 175,000.
Okay,
So, and they just loaned some to Mike Mignon, 50 grand to Mike Mignon.
just wondering if we were gonna be in competition with them.
We could be. We could be, and it could be that you could leverage both funds.
Yeah.
You
No, I
know,
understand.
to attract people.
They take his truck and car.
And also just a reminder, it's in the report, but the amount of money that we need to have a plan for, essentially, the amount of money that we need to mobilize from that fund is 50,000 basically. So it's not like the full 250,000 has to have a plan and be mobilized. It's basically a plan for 50,000, which is achievable. I've had conversations with Duncan. I don't necessarily want to get too involved in the details just because I don't want to reveal things about, but there is someone who's interested for that amount of money. There's a realistic possibility, that they will in fact apply for it. It's just a matter of getting a sense from CDBG how concrete. And I think one of the things that, I discussed with Duncan is maybe for CDBG's purposes, if we get a loan approval without actually dispersing the money, that could be a way to make it all work, because the person doesn't necessarily need the money right now. They might want it in the future, but if we just go ahead and approve it, I think it could be a sort of good faith indication to CDBG that yes, of course, this money is going to be used. It's just not going to be used in this, a shorter time frame. It might be a longer time frame or something. So,
And I highly encourage us to continue along the path of trying to get the concurrence of VCDP to allow us to use the fund to attract businesses to the industrial park. So we may not be able to meet their deadlines of middle of January, but if we can commit to,
Yeah, enticement.
an enticement, then hopefully that meets the goals of both our revolving loan fund and the state's goals for creating economic opportunity.
Certainly. Guess we'll have another meeting before that deadline happens.
We probably will. So the one other thing that might be worth having Randall on the Zoom for was the other item that I had about potential buyouts. Can
Flood buyout.
we do that one now?
It's quick.
It should be quick.
Really?
Yeah. So Parmelo has indicated an interest in undergoing a buyout. Mark and I talked about this earlier, and my recollection, as was Mark's recollection, was that this board had pretty much said that anybody that applied for buyout would be granted the support of the select board. Is that understanding? I know Peter wasn't on the board. I'm not sure you were on the board then either.
And Evan, you're on memory.
Is your memory the same or similar as that, or?
This would be our first unique property, eventually, but yes, that was the general consensus of that board.
It's gonna be a big hit for property taxes.
If that property went up for a buyout, it would be painful. Unless there was interest in maybe using that money to.
Well,
You're headed where I'm headed.
I absolutely agree with you, but I think they're separate issues. I think they're separate issues. I would love to see Farmelo reinvest the money from a buyout in, say, the light industrial commercial park. Or some other place in Johnson, and that would not ultimately impact the tax base. It would be shifting it from one place to another, which would be the ideal situation as far as I'm concerned. But I think they really are two separate issues.
They are two separate ones, but if there was a sense of willingness
Absolutely.
from the applicant.
Absolutely. And I was emailed by Drew Waxler of Farmelo Associates asking if there would be, if he thought there was general support for a buyout. I forwarded a copy of that email to Mark and Evan both, as chair and vice chair. Carefully saying I was just one member and, you know, it would be a vote of the board on that, but I thought that there would be general support for the buyout. But oh, by the way, it would really be nice to know whether or not there was also interest in redeveloping, reinvesting the money elsewhere in the community. And I sort of couched that in the context of, we might be able to, support that with other funding, applications for other funding sources. So I guess my query to the board is sort of in that context, or I guess I told Drew I would try and take a temperature of the board.
Well, we can't hold them hostage to that.
No, like I said, I think they really are two different issues, but.
You know my thoughts.
What are those?
I'd say yes tomorrow if there was an interest in reinvesting it in the community.
Yes.
Some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, that would be a no-brainer.
I think we should support the buyout. I think even though it's a unique property, I think we've taken the position of that we were going to accept buyout applications. And, we have accepted some applications for businesses, meaning rental properties. But I think that would be, we have to make two issues. And I think that my temperature is that we would support that. It would be more likely if the deadline is not passed.
You could extend it to April 30th is my understanding.
That's what I thought too.
If this property were to be accepted by the state level, which I know the floodplain administrator would love it out of there. It would be the state floodplain administrator. It would be an enormous help to preserving downtown as part of our flood mitigation efforts. Already working up and down right beside it, adding that to Union Bank and Tatro and Williams property would make an enormous impact to the upper Guyon and so that in itself is probably worth it in any amount to our grand list, is preserving the rest of the structures in the village. So
We can't treat them any different than we have everybody else.
Yeah, I would certainly support a buyout as well. I think we, and I know a new board it doesn't have to follow the desires of the old board, but I think we were fairly, as a board, we were fairly explicit early on that we would support any applications for buyouts. So I would support that.
Whatever your temperature check.
I think so. Would people feel comfortable with at least the concept of trying to provide additional support to encourage the reinvestment of the money
Yes.
But that's a separate.
as a separate issue?
Separate issue.
As a separate
completely.
issue.
I think you have the temperature of the board. You
Yeah.
can communicate back to them, the board is supportive of them going through the buyout. We'd be even more loving if but the two issues.
Yeah. So since I got the initial email, I should just point out that I sort of developed a working relationship with Drew and his father and Ernie Pomerleau when Sterling Market was going in. So I think that's why Drew reached out to me directly. Is the board comfortable with me responding to Drew?
Continue to March.
Go for it.
Yeah. Randall, do you have any thoughts on this?
I mean, I think what Tom said was spot on, like there's definite financial implication from it being off the grand list, but I think there's potential, it's a little harder to measure, but I think there's potential great financial impact in a positive sense in protecting structures in the downtown.
Is it your sense that we're probably part of this would be lowering of that lot? Kind of like Holmes Meadow?
I don't know, but should they decide to pursue it, should it be approved, it opens up, a lot of potential for green space right in the core of the town and town/village, like
Totally.
I think
I do think that's an off the topic from what Duncan wanted,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to beam back.
Yep.
Nope, that's okay.
Opens up a lot of potential.
Beam me
Totally
down.
agree. I think we all do.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, can we move on to the committee report?
Oh,
Yes,
yes.
thank you,
Yeah.
Randall.
thanks.
You digitally image this in?
Yeah, so there's.
You're hired.
All right, so. Huh? You good? The first thing we're just gonna ask for the board's approval on was a sculpture at two different locations, one being the trailhead, Ted Alexander Welcome Center. Or the second location could be at the playground at Old Mill Park. Kind of like where those trees kind of make a circle, so like the center of that. And also a movable diamond sculpture that could also be placed there. And this could kind of expand that area to make it an interactive like sculpture area where kids could like move the sculptures around and like they'll be heavy and like kind of turn them and stuff. this is the sculptures of the flower and the diamond. Did you want to add anything else to that?
They're made of steel.
They're still, yeah, 16 gauge, hollow construction.
Yeah, the flower is 10 feet tall.
Yeah, 10 feet tall, 4 feet by 4 feet is the base.
And then you said you'd put like rebarb down to
Yeah, it's currently,
stabilize it.
at the Highland Center of the Arts, and we just got some rebar, we bent some rebar. We put it into the ground, holding it into the earth.
Mhm.
It's up at the college right now?
No,
Highland
it's a
Center.
great
Oh, Highland Center.
So your first request is for a motion of the board on where they would like the sculpture. Is that just a quick synopsis?
Yeah,
You wanna give your artistic opinion?
Oh, sure. I think they're both,
Yeah.
I think they're both great locations. The one by the visitor center it's easier to see, you know, as you come off the road, it can be right there. And then the one at the park, you know, there's the parking lot in there, and it's right next to it, so kids will be playing there, it'd be great visibility. I mean, they're both really great locations, and it's really just sort of a preference on where you think we should go.
I don't think you should ask me that.
What are the board's thoughts?
And these are free too.
I'm definitely willing to loan it to you. I'd like to see, you know, sculpture here in Johnson and see if we can get some more.
I would leave it
Well,
up.
if you're gonna do it,
beautification
you can
committee to
make the
pick. I don't
decision.
care.
Where you wanna put them.
Okay.
That's the way I look at it,
Wait, you said wherever?
wherever he wants to put it.
All right.
If he's good enough to loan them to the town of Johnson, then he should
Yeah,
pick where they go.
why are you asking us where
Your
to put
thoughts?
stuff?
I agree.
It's
Work with the beautification
committee.
committee and
Yeah, that's.
put them where you
Alright,
think's the
so-
best location.
Okay.
You asked.
Could I get a motion from the board to approve sculpture placement at beautification committee's recommendation?
So moved.
Provided that if it's in the state highway or state railway away, there's permission and.
Well, if you said so,
You know
I'll
that.
say something.
Yeah, I'll move it. And that's provided it's not in like a state highway right away or somewhere.
Well, it's the railroad right away.
The road, well.
Kyle knows what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
Kyle, okay.
We have.
And Adrian,
If you-
you've dealt with it too, so.
If you put it over by the playground, it's not in the railroad right away.
Mhm.
That's all.
Is that muddy enough, Donna?
A little bit, I guess. The beautification committee decides where to put the sculpture. As long as it isn't in state highway right away, or understanding that if it is.
No, it's
they need to
the
get permission.
railroad. right
Rail
away.
trail.
The V-Trans right away.
Mhm. Mhm.
And if they place it there with permission, but the motion are fine.
Thank you, that's very nice of you.
But it'll go at Old Mill Park either way.
And for both sculptures, right? The-
All right.
Yes,
The small one, okay.
Yep, there was a motion by
Mark,
and seconded by,
like,
all right, any further discussion?
Aye.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Alright,
All those opposed? And the ayes have it.
And
Okay.
he can put it there at whatever time?
anytime you want.
Okay.
Exactly.
well,
Okay.
during the daylight.
We have a noise.
Daylight.
I would like to make a comment.
Sure.
I would really love to see these up and down Main Street on the pedestals.
The bigger.
And also, I've said it a couple of times. I think a sculpture walk inside the Arboretum would be cool, but whatever. I like it.
Step in the
Anything
right
you wanna
direction.
build, we'll take.
All right.
Build it.
Keep building. All right, that's the sculpture, right?
Yep. Okay, and then the other, yes, thank you for your approval on that. And thank you for your donation or lending of it.
Can I ask what your name is?
Mike Stanley.
Thank you very much, Mike.
You bet.
That was key for me, it was free.
Yep.
Well,
Pretty good.
he's gonna become famous, it's gonna become priceless.
Then we won't be able to touch it.
Okay, next.
And the next thing is the artwork on the side of the Welcome Center, so. That right now there's portraits of people riding on like a train, a faux train. So we just wanted to know, we don't really have any set ideas of what would go there yet, but we just want to know if there's the option to,
Like to erase those portraits.
huh?
To erase those portraits?
No, not to erase them.
Take it down.
Rotate.
The first one on the
Yeah.
left.
Yeah, I don't- I
We're
think Howard's
floating,
done one of those.
we're floating a couple different ideas. We haven't landed on anything yet, but maybe seasonal artwork to go there, or maybe even having a contest for yearly artists to put art there. It could even still be like them something riding the train, maybe aliens riding the train, or you know, whatever. But we just want to know if we could even explore the possibility of doing something.
Kind of revolving.
Yeah, you're not asking for a specific motion, you're just asking for temperature of the board.
Sure.
It's fine with me.
But I would just say that I really like what's there now, so I would hope that something could be either incorporated with them or,
Mm.
you know, the same concept, and Howard certainly had a lot to do with organizing this whole thing, so.
Yeah, the problem, yeah, well, yeah, all that stuff was my idea. Fine, go ahead, you know. And do something else, it's, that's, I have no problem with that. Those photographs are on aluminum stuff, they're frightfully expensive, so let's not lose them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
They're highly collectible.
Mhm.
The Historic Society's collecting.
Yes, the Historical Society will. want-
Peter, are you amendable to that? It seems like the
Yes.
board's
Go for it, Pete.
open to the ideas and suggestions.
Okay. And this is just a list of our projects that have completed and that we're working on, and then a maintenance list for the town and village. So I was just providing this because you wanted like an update of where our committee's at right now. So some of the completed things were the fall decorations, Halloween party, planting at Historical Society, food shelf, and trailhead. Some upcoming things was the trailhead train writer artwork, the trailhead sculpture, that's we're here right now. Rainwater gardens, bike sculptures, a greenhouse, a hoop house situation, cold spring mosaic. Some of these things are village and some of these things are town. And then like for the maintenance list below, the town ones are graffiti and guardrails on Powerhouse Bridge. The welcome signs need to be like repaired or updated. Weeding around the covered bridge and maintenance on the outside of the covered bridge.
Yeah, the covered bridge is getting rough. The powerhouse.
With graffiti, you mean?
Yeah.
So are you proposing putting new graffiti in, or?
No.
Oh,
Modern graffiti.
Yeah.
Marty.
Art graffiti.
And some boards are starting to pop off on the outside.
Jason is renting piece of equipment in the next couple of weeks to repair the siding and Scrivener Bridge. And for him to do it, it's like peanuts, right? It's like budgeted for labor. We would check in with him in the next couple of days. To see where he's at with that, and maybe you could make. I don't think anyone's aware of that until right now. So just making him aware of it while he has the equipment, it might be able to get them sooner as well.
Okay.
Does it sound like it's just nailing some, put more nails in?
They're just they're like winging out and popping off. I'm not sure what
You
needs
get
to be done.
breezy in there.
But it's
Then you can.
really
shed water.
heavily graffitied inside, and there's some on the outside too. And then there's a lot of like saplings that are getting bigger and bigger that are really blocking the view of the bridge, and I don't know if that's something that Jason and the crew could take care of in the spring, but it's a highly photographed area, and right now it's just getting harder and harder to photograph because there's so much growth around it.
From the School Street side?
More from the 100C side, actually. Yeah, and then the guardrails there are really rusted out and like might not do their job as a magic slant. So it's just starting to.
Not look beautiful.
And it's amazing how many people photograph that.
Oh, same with Scrivener.
It's amazing how many people think it's an old bridge.
I think we have a professional tree squirter on the board.
Yeah.
That could go take care of some saplings.
Everybody takes a picture of Mark Simon that page.
And then the welcome to Johnson signs, I never remember, is that village, town?
You know, I've asked that question, I never got a straight answer. I don't know.
I think in the state MOU with the village, it says the welcome signs too. I'll have to read it. I think it's village.
The ones out like by Blue Spruce and.
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah, because they still say MVU on them and it's peeling up and the paint's desperately needs to be painted, and the one near Blue Spruce that like needs to get shirred up. Tip over.
Those are expensive signs too.
Yeah, and that,
$3,000 a piece.
Really?
at the,
Really?
They were.
they were, but at the time, the college contributed some money. They're probably not gonna anymore.
Never go bad. I don't think they're gonna spend $3,000 again.
Well, we certainly should hit the college up, because they've changed their name again.
Yeah.
They're making us redo the sign.
Yeah,
Good point.
you know,
You're right
was
on
it
that.
you that donated the Welcome to Johnson signs to the Historical Society? Or did Linda, I think Linda
Yeah.
Jones must have gotten those.
That was the cast aluminum one?
Yes,
Yeah, no.
and so that would be my point. There are some historical signs that were original Welcome to Johnson signs, and they're cast aluminum or
Yeah,
whatever.
Eastern Magnesia and Talc, that was quite a while ago.
Right, yeah, and I don't know what they would cost, but they'd be one and done.
Well, till the college changed its name.
Yeah.
Or until it's stolen.
I think the question is.
Or till college.
Yeah, we need to find that,
Okay,
or if it's a joint thing.
yeah, let's dig into that, find out who's they actually are. Move forward. It would be nice to spruce them up.
I mean, yeah,
That's what we
it's
got.
the gateway to your town. It looks shabby then. But,
Yeah.
Do you plant flowers in those too?
yes,
That's,
some perennials come up on the, one near Katie Wynn, and then annuals at the other one, because it's like a box.
All right,
okay,
is that
thank you.
all I had?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Look forward to seeing more sculptures.
Thank you.
You have a great sculpture.
Future committee report. January off.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think we should.
Okay,
I think we're gonna be wrapped up in budget stuff still.
Yeah.
Than town meeting stuff.
for sure.
but I did want to make a note that at some point it would be nice to have maybe the chairs of the reimagined Johnson committees come in and give us a quick update on what's going on with that whole thing, or maybe Mark, Lisa, and his assistant. So that the select board's up to speed. I've been going to those meetings and they're percolating along.
Not just like coffee.
Yeah, it's a lot like coffee, except people are really working hard. They're really dedicated. You know, the recreation and the college, the housing ones. They're really a core group of people that are working hard on it.
Okay, next up is the library. We have some. RFQs to award. It looks like, and library has made a recommendation that aligns with Peter and Tom,
Yeah,
everybody, so I would entertain a motion from the board.
These are estimates, not really contracts, correct?
RFQ.
Their responses, formal responses.
When are we gonna get the real bid?
Who knows? I think. That is item B under the library.
I would like to note for the record that I serve with Greg Paz on the Lamar County Planning Commission Board. I do not believe I have any conflict of interest, but if anybody feels that it would be a conflict of interest for me to vote on that, I would recuse myself.
Not hearing any howlings.
No,
No.
I don't stand to make any money.
I know you may. Let me take a stab at a motion.
Go for it.
I move that we accept the library board recommendations for building mover and architect. Building mover, New England Building Movers LLC. And Silver Ridge Design
The architect.
as the architect.
I'll second for the purpose of discussion.
All right. I really thought there was a lot of traction. You know, there was
Yeah,
a lot of interest and everything, not very many submissions.
There were 4 interested building movers, but only 1 bid came in.
Do you have a sense they just?
I think that our timeline is too fast. That was the architectural problem too, is that there was a lot of interest in architectural firms. People want to do this. They're very excited by the project. But when they found out they had to get drawings out right away so we can bid out for general contracting, a lot of people just couldn't get going until April or May and so that really killed a lot of our response. But we have two great responses for architectural drawings anyways. Silver Ridge, A, did the site visit, and B, they did the Morristown Library renovation. So they're familiar with libraries and they're certainly familiar with our communities. And then New England Building Movers was one of 2 that did a site visit. And actually did an extensive site visit with the village utilities. So Nate and Lou Knapp, the owner, spent a long time working out the intricate details of the utility, which is the next biggest problem, right? But and this is significantly lower than our preliminary budget for moving the building, and so we couldn't be more excited.
Am I wrong in thinking that the numbers were as high as $750,000 at one point?
I think we had 1 verbal quote at 600.
Okay.
And then we had,
So at 250, seems to fit within the budget.
yeah.
Never seen I guess I saw the grant application.
Are they planning to take it apart when they move it?
Helicopters, Mark.
I guess I'll be,
Brick by brick.
Fill it with helium.
Nate's been
They're gonna
recruiting
float it.
like
Water,
utility
right?
companies, so Hyde Park and Morristown to help with that move, so it'll be like a local thing. And I guess there's like a local betting pool about which part the building's gonna fall apart on the roof.
This needs to be a well publicized event. We need
food trucks.
We need a couple oxen in front of the truck that's pulling in.
Yeah.
All right, we're getting off further discussion here.
Okay.
If it falls apart, who owns it?
the ox.
No, my question's serious. Are we
They're
up a
insured.
creek?
That was part of the insurance requirement.
Yeah.
Is I actually spoke to his insurance agent in out of Boston. Hey, look, if it falls apart, are we gonna get a new building? And it's based on our assessed value, we're gonna, we'll probably get we will get a significant amount of money to build, so. And
But
I
they
think-
tie it up for so long, we'd lose the grant, we wouldn't be able to afford to do anything.
You laugh about the oxen, but when I was a kid in Woodstock, they pulled a covered bridge across the Ottaquechee River using an oxen and turnstiles. And this is just local folklore, but it's said that those oxen couldn't do anything but go in a circle for 2 months.
Okay, so do we,
Any further discussion?
you have a second? We have a second on this? Yes, we do, Duncan.
Duncan, second. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it.
Very exciting.
Next item is
Delegate something.
delegate somebody from the board. To work with the town attorney to draft contracts for these services.
I nominate Peter.
I'll second that.
All right. Mike?
I'll go right along with that. Takes me out that way.
Are you good?
Forgot that. Can I
And the town administrator?
Yes.
reach out to the architect to start working with the building mover to draft foundation plans so we can get a general contractor RFP started? Gonna get this thing moving so we can start putting that contracting up to bid before spring projects are complete. We need to move like ASAP to size somebody up.
Yeah.
Hey, if they're willing to do all the work without being under contract. Or just. Sweet.
Great.
Did they, I can't remember, did they provide a draft contract as part of the RFP process?
No, that's just like one that meets federal procurement guidelines, but then as soon as now we move to, Dave is gonna. We already went through this once with this building. In the library, we had to meet, you know, all the same requirements, so Dave already has the. Templates ready to go. So,
So it shouldn't be a heavy lift for the attorney to draft a contract.
just for the movers.
Okay,
Do you need a formal motion to
congratulations, Peter.
No, I
start that process? or-
Just so you knew if you saw bills in the next, you know, that's.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
You guys have anything to add? Library happy?
Yeah.
I like happy. Yeah, they outnumber us.
Yeah, Jasmine, how long?
All right, Tasha.
Should I come up there?
Yeah.
Yes, if you could.
Yeah, we
The
want
the
you in the hot seat.
microphone. Works better there.
You gotta be on the owl.
Like the legislature. For the record, I'm Tasha Wallace, Lamoille County Planning Commission. Did you wish me to speak to the visualization grant first, since you moved it? Or
It says presentation and then there's the. Request to contact property buyout, property owners, floodplain. And then there's the visualization, so yeah, you can start with whichever one you want. Visualization, let's do it, why not?
Okay, let's see what we can come up with.
Liaison
Yeah.
from the select board, LCPC for visualization grants.
Sure, and just to remind you, this is a $5,000 grant through the Vermont Natural Resources Council that the town obtained with the assistance of LCPC staff. And this grant is basically to help you if you have a big idea to see what it might look like. So for instance, you've got a bunch of buyouts in town. Some of them might want to rewild. There's a couple very near the gateway to the community. You might want to do something different with them. You might want to come to us and say, well, what might that look like? And then we can use some of our SketchUp tools, whatever, to say, well, you could make it like this, you know, with a walkway or whatever. And so with that, the idea is that we would do these sketches based on, you know, the work of the planning commission and the various community groups that are coming up with the ideas for the town, but we want to make sure that whatever we're asked to make a picture of is something with their select board buy-in, and that so that we're not going down a road that select board hasn't considered or reviewed or thought about. And so I don't know if you need a liaison or a process, but we really just want to make sure that when we're doing the work, that it's what you want us to do.
Is there a way to do a Survey Monkey survey? You know, kind of get 5 ideas and board members could just say, we like this idea.
That would be like this, you would need to do that in public, I think. Yeah, as a select board.
We could have meeting time for it.
And
What else?
yeah, so we could have, you know, someone from the planning commission or one of our staff present or whatever. But we just wanted to make sure, since it's really things we'd be doing at the request of the community, that the select board is the legislative body is part of that process.
Part of it was putting some onus on the select board. A lot of this is coming out of those 5 subcommittees of Reimagine Johnson, right? And this puts some onus on the select board to be in contact with the planning commission. Has representatives on each one of those groups, right? But then what's the connection between the planning commission's work and the subcommittee's work and the select board? And this kind of establishes that permanent connection, kind of like a college liaison or a library liaison. It's if that way there's always a communication, so there's no surprises. Hey, guys, I went to this thing, so-and-so called and this is what they're thinking. That kind of was my understanding.
Trying to remember the timeline when Seth brought this to us.
It was in August.
Do you envision the process of coming up with an idea involving winnowing down several ideas to one idea, or coming up with one idea?
If
ultimately?
there were several ideas you wanted to consider, we could say these what the different ideas look like. Really, this is a grant where we can use our tools to assist your public process. However you want to do that. So it's really just, I'm here to talk about, well, however do you want to do it? Do you want to have a liaison? Do you want to have us come to the board? But again, we want to make sure the work reflects how you want to do your decision making.
How long is this grant good for? Assuming the FEMA buyout stuff takes place in, what, 26 maybe?
2 years, yeah.
26? I mean, so if we say, yeah, go for this grant, you have to spend it in 25.
Right, but one would assume you would want to do a planning process along the way and talk about what you want to do with the
Oh,
buyouts.
we may
Yeah,
not know
right,
actually who's in the final buyout properties.
right. Well, you can do it based on the best information that you have. And
But it doesn't have to
it
be.
doesn't have to be about the buyouts. It can
About
be about
buyouts either.
something else.
Be about one specific property. It could be, I mean,
Okay. What?
the presentation that Seth gave us was. This was used for in Cambridge.
In Jeffersonville,
Jeffersonville, sorry, for
yes.
right by the Union Bank for that underwater thing is,
yes,
and there was a couple of, visualizations they had.
right, because we basically put this giant culvert right in the middle of the village and people wanted to get a sense of what would that look like, would that affect the public space? Would that affect how people moved around or whatever? And so we did a series of sketches that showed where walkways could be, where pedestrians could move, what kind of, plantings there could be, et cetera. So it's really about how you wish to use this tool that you now have.
If it were a liaison, what would that look like for that person in terms of meetings, time commitment?
And
Right.
we have to be a select board person?
Well, I think what Tom is trying to get at with that, having a select board person, is having that select board person be in communication with the planning commission. Or the various groups that are working under the VCRD grant to, reimagine Johnson. So it would be really, again, how much time you wanted to do, but being in connection with the select board. So that if we were being asked to do something by the planning commission, knowing that you'd be in contact with the planning commission, that we weren't doing something that was just way off base from the ideas that you were considering.
I think we need a bigger select board.
Well, I was gonna comment that,
Move it to seven.
since Peter is absolved from being town service officer.
But I was gonna put him into the cemetery.
Don't put me in the center.
That's why I was kind of just thinking of. We could go back and does LCPC have kind of an overview map of the properties all highlighted? You had one, but I thought we approved 20 more by it since then.
LCPC is building like a base map right now, that's, Tori actually just sent an email during the meeting. So I'm gonna confirm select board liaison for project community engagement, LCPC will provide high level overview to planning commission, LCPC will draft base map existing commissions and draft RFP for consultant. And they'll schedule follow-up meeting with partners to review maps and proposals. So I think that base map will come. I think what we just need to do today is pick somebody just to be a voice for the board to say, you know.
I mean, if it's just wanted to be directly linked to the Reimagine Johnson event, I think Mark has been the largest proponent for that. And
I'm fine to do this. It'll be temporarily for a few months.
Yeah, it really is a communication role.
he's saying in March he's not gonna be back.
I can't find the hands of future select boards.
But I think that's
what you're saying.
I think that's a good start, you know, because I think that.
Thank you. Good start.
I think you're a wonderful person.
But I think you have the background to, you know, and the communication and the connections as you all do with the community to,
Okay.
yeah, good, that's all right, thank you.
Do we need to take any?
Does the
form
rest
of-
of the board even agree with me? I just,
Duncan pointed at.
I'm seconding your motion. If you're motioning
it
to,
wasn't a motion. I don't think we need a motion for a liaison.
I'm the liaison.
We
to
don't.
College already, so.
Yeah, how's that going?
It's rigorous.
Yeah.
I'm just glad you're back in town, let's put it like that.
All right, Tasha.
Next.
Thank you, okay, and so, the reason I'm here is a couple of things. One, customer service visit, you know, we work closely with the communities and we want to make sure that we're working on projects that you want to work us on, that we're really providing value and, make sure that there are other things that you want us, you know, if you have other ideas that we're happy to talk about them and consider them, but really to connect with you guys on that. And then the second reason is to talk about some of the new legislation that we'll be working with you on in the new year and some of the new requirements for the town plan and the regional plan. So first, customer service, we send you a letter every year with our town appropriation and it outlines all the projects that we're working with you on. And we have been very involved with Johnson over the past year.
And thank you.
The RPCs have stepped it up.
Yeah.
I would offer one thought, and I don't want to steal Mark's thunder, but Mark has and Mike both have numerous times talked about a desire to try and do greater coordination between the communities for such things as group purchase of salt, group purchase of pavement, fuel, you know,
Everything.
any number of things.
Raw
So,
materials.
yeah,
Yeah, anything that we buy, how many culverts a year? 30 culverts a year?
No, we only buy like $7,000 worth.
I don't know. But
That's
you
how
know,
bad it
it
is.
seems like I grew up with county government.
Mhm.
And it seems crazy that all these towns are buying fuel oil and culverts and salt.
We're not allowed to say that, if they're mutual aid, interlocal
Right.
agreements.
So a couple of things. One is the town taking advantage of the opportunity to work with the state and access the state pricing, because I think that's
OPC.
important, yeah.
Yeah, I checked with OPC for this.
Yeah. And then the second thing is, I'm happy to report that I don't know when in April yet, it will be on an evening when there's not a select board meeting, but we're working with the League of Cities and Towns to organize a countywide meeting of select boards. So I think it's kind of a really fun and cool opportunity to meet your colleagues from other communities if you don't know them and talk about some of these ideas. This has been done down in the Windham County region and in Northwest Vermont already. And what they found is that they didn't really need an agenda because select board members just wanted to talk with one another and talk about the ideas that you have for collaboration and some of the challenges that you face. So, we're hoping that this might be a first step to some of those, questions that
Great, I would challenge the Stowe Select Board to come.
It's interesting, when I went to Stowe, even before we were planning this, one of the select board members was asking about doing something like this because they felt some identity with the county and really wanted to connect with other folks, so.
Excuse me, you made a comment a minute ago about getting involved with the state contracts. We couldn't get involved with the state contract for salt this year.
Yeah,
They wouldn't let us.
$75 with some of the state contract and ended up paying over 90 for the same stuff.
Cost us about $8,000. OPC is aware of the contract change and they will be part of the new negotiation, but Compass wouldn't let us, and they have Region 8, so it's stored in Morrisville, but they wouldn't support our person.
And it made a difference between $8,000 and $10,000.
Oh, yeah.
For the town of Johnson, so, I mean, that's not money to sneeze at.
Yeah, yeah. And there are other opportunities, in terms of, if towns share vehicle, there's opportunities for 0%, borrowing. We have in the LCPC bylaws, the authority to coordinate intertown agreements, but it still is fairly bureaucratically cumbersome. We did try and work with a number of communities on assessors. And at the end of the day, the communities sorted it out between themselves. But we're also happy to facilitate discussions like that. So I hope you can all come to the select board
What's the
meeting
date
of
of
your
this?
peers. We don't have a date. We're looking at the month of April.
Okay.
Do we have to warn that as well?
I'm going to find out what you have to warn, because it would be important that everybody, I presume that you would not be doing any action items when you were there. But I will make sure to find out. I'm sure that the VLCT has looked into this, having helped sponsor this in 2 other regions already.
Right. That sounds.
I think with open meeting law, you can meet as long as you're not doing the business of the town.
If we're talking about the town and town struggles and solutions, is that business? I guess we're not making
I
decisions.
mean, you can always warn a special meeting and then
Right.
that's it.
You have a luncheon with prime rib, I'm sure every select board member in the county would show up.
Is this?
There are some vegetarians.
Is this a school board meeting?
No, it's a pull-up meeting.
We get cold cuts.
Baloney.
I don't know the date, but it will likely be the 2nd Thursday, the 3rd Thursday, or the 4th Thursday, because those were the only dates I could find where,
First would be a good.
I don't know what day of the week that is.
Oh, no.
April
I
Fools.
think that would be well, anyway, I'll keep you posted on when that's coming up.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Where are the flood maps gonna show up from the feds?
Re-show up.
You know, you might ask me questions that I can answer. Yes,
I'm your new liaison.
your new liaison, but
Oh, that's just for official.
I don't know, we can circle back around.
No,
I mean, we
It
were
didn't have
happy
a-
that they were pulled off, the old ones pulled. I
Yeah.
think that was, we got, I think the congressional delegation was very helpful to this community and really working that with FEMA, so. But we will look at that. Okay, other questions about things you might want us to do that I don't know about, that any concerns about our work, or I can move on to the new legislation?
Let's move on. Something will pop up.
All right, yes, okay. So, there were 2 pieces of legislation passed. 2 years ago was the Home Act, which made some changes to the requirements for community zoning, et cetera, related to the creation of housing. And then last year was Act 181, which is the Act 250 reform bill. So as part of the Home Act, there was a requirement to do a statewide assessment, a housing needs assessment for the state, to look at just what the condition is, because we all know there's shortage. And then there were sub-reports for each county. There is a requirement then that the state is going to give LCPC a housing target for Lamoille County. We will then be asked to provide housing, working with communities, I want to be clear. We will need to provide each community in collaboration a housing target. And those housing targets will need to be incorporated into town plans going forward.
We just approved our town plan.
When you do that, and I'm speaking as a select board member, not as an LCD board member, will there be, or do you anticipate there will be an analysis of what is currently available to the general housing market? In other words, with Johnson, will you look at the number of mobile home units, rental units, all of those types? Will you look at the types of housing that are currently available?
We will do the best job we can depending on what kind of targets we have been given. As you know, there's a bunch of different communities in the region. Some of the very small communities don't have water or wastewater or even zoning, so have very few tools to even try to assist to how to create additional housing. But at the same time that we can't really exclude them from the process. So we are probably gonna look at, and working with you, look at what the existing housing is relevant to your point, types of housing, etc. And then try and just craft something. These are aspirational goals, working with you.
Maybe we've already met our target.
But your Morrisville has.
Well, I think, you know, to both points, there is certainly a perception, whether it's right, wrong, or otherwise, that Johnson already provides a significant portion of quote affordable housing to the county.
Is this a make work project by the state?
You don't have to answer that.
Really? I tell you, everything that comes out of Montpelier is a make work project for somebody.
Well, it's aspiration.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
somebody has to do it.
Well, it's just to make aspirations.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, you know, a quarter of the affordable housing in the county is actually in Stowe. So working with all the communities, again, we're gonna identify where the affordable housing is, where the housing is, where the water and sewer is, but really just work with you to come up with an aspirational target.
The town doesn't have any water and sewer.
The village does.
You guys are really putting her in the hot.
You know?
We can move on to the next one. This will come
A
up.
lot
in
of
another
towns,
meeting.
it's not unusual,
We
but.
do have an allocation.
And we have no zoning.
We already
Well,
did it.
We've
Oh, yeah.
hit over half of it.
I look forward to working with you all on this process.
There
I
you go.
appreciate your
Thank you.
comments. And also, I do appreciate that, I have been taking note of the comments from communities and do plan to share with decision makers some of the things I've heard about, you know, some of the challenges with providing housing. The second thing is that under Act 181, which passed last year, and you're familiar with this, Duncan, because you're on the board, the role of regional planning has changed. Right now, we work with communities, you do your town plans, we take those town plan concepts and ideas and amalgamate them and look at larger topics and create the regional plan. It's then approved by the board of LCPC, and that's a regional plan. Under the new legislation, our regional plan will now need to be approved by the Land Use Resource Board, which is the replacement for the Natural Resources Board, the Act 250 board. And there are new requirements we will need to meet, which means that we are going to start a public process in January to update our regional plan. Part of that will be updating our land use map for the region. And right now, we built that land use map working with the communities. In the legislation, there's very specific descriptions and designations of land use categories. And not all of them are fully consistent with our current definitions we have in our land use map. And so we will need to work with you to make sure that when we redo our plan and redo our map, we reflect the values and the goals of the community. So Seth and I will be coming back to see you in the new year to talk more about these things, but I wanted to make sure that you are aware of them.
The regional plan will have to be approved by,
It will need to be approved by the new board by the end of 2026.
and that new board is.
It's the LCPC board.
The land use review board.
This is
Land use review.
The lower-
the successor to the Act 250
Right.
Commissioner Board.
And it's really important that we meet that deadline. If we don't meet that deadline, then all the existing designations go away.
How reliant
So-
are we on multi-town, does your plan rely on the dependency of other towns having a plan in place?
No,
Okay, good.
no.
That's,
But it does rely, there's a whole public hearing process associated with the land use review board. So really, we have to be done with our plan by April or May of 2026. And we have to make all the updates and work with the communities. So it'll be quite a process. And we're also required to do a very extensive public outreach process. So we're going to be working with select boards and trustees, but also reaching out to the general public as well. So, yeah, it'll be an interesting year next year.
Hmm.
And
And the one thing that is known is that there's a lot of unknowns.
that's correct. That is correct. And
Everybody just said no.
it's I don't know. I mean, it is interesting that this was passed by the legislature, which was in place last year. There's a very different legislature going forward, but the regional planning commissions have all been working together to try and understand the new requirements and try and find ways so that we're being consistent and asking the same questions. So hopefully we won't have any big hurdles in getting our regional plan approved.
Tasha's heard me say this before, and it's a political comment, so take it for what it's worth. Back in 1968, 1969, when Act 250 was first approved, it was approved with a statewide land use plan and component, including a statewide land use map. The following year, the legislature got rid of the land use component and left in place the regulations and requirements associated with the plan, which in my mind has been part of the problem with administering Act 250 all these years. But this, in my opinion, is a further attempt by the legislature to now impose a statewide land use plan.
AKA statewide zoning.
It could have ended up there with Act 250. I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't think this necessarily will.
It's hard to say what
Yeah.
all the outcomes will be.
Yeah.
I will note there is an opportunity for this community in this process, in that the downtown designations, the areas for which those have been really driven by negotiation between the community and the state. We have now in our land use maps, we can work with the community to propose larger designated areas. And if those larger areas are approved, that really expands the area for which benefits can be applied by developers, et cetera. Other questions, other political comments? Okay. Should I move on then, Mr. Chair, to item 11?
Yes, LCPC requested a compact property owners for floodplain restoration.
So this is pretty much about the buyouts. Individuals in the buyout process know they're in the buyout process. And we're looking at the floodplain restoration. So really, we just want to be able to communicate with those people in the buyouts and with neighbors so that people know what we're up to when we're wandering around.
You just need a temperature of the board. I don't personally have a problem with it.
Me neither.
Either do I.
You need a formal motion?
Mark's aesthetic.
It would be nice if we had a formal motion, just so that we had that we could say that the select board has approved, are contacting you and we're really trying.
Peter, would you like to pass that?
LPPC, their staff, architects, surveyors would be acting on behalf of the town of Johnson, because ultimately that land is, that's why it needs.
I have been contacted, they're coming to one of my properties to look for bats on Wednesday.
Oh, yes, the bats. Yes, I know about I'm.
Little brown bats?
That seems like a personal thing, not so
Well,
much
I
a
don't know,
town
is it
board
LCPC that's
conversation.
connected?
So we are not,
Owners?
we are aware of the bat issue. So basically,
So it's the state, not you
the
guys.
Fish and Wildlife Department.
The bat issue.
The bats. So Fish and Wildlife Department has asked
Maybe they were.
that the buyout properties be evaluated as bat habitat. So Sarah Henshaw is working with Fish and Wildlife to visit the properties, and she is the director of LEARN, which is the long-term recovery group. So you're not the only one who.
So it has nothing to do with you folks.
You're just a
Okay.
part of the bat problem.
So they gotta just leave the buildings there, so that's, but
I would move to authorize LCPC to make contact with persons on the buyout list for
And neighboring property.
and neighboring properties for whatever purposes are required
like,
or deemed necessary.
I wanted you there, Peter. Sorry.
Yeah.
Motion a second, further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Yeah, I have it.
That's basically the whole village you can contact.
Well, thank you.
Depends on your definition of neighbor.
Yeah.
I hope things go well with the bats.
Want to go inside.
So is the concern that they would not damage existing bat habitat or an opportunity to create new bat habitat?
So it's really about when you do work. So if they'll probably demolish these houses next year anyway, at which point the bats will probably be flying around doing other things. So, but it's their process, so.
They can
They're
only
carrying-
demolish them at night. When the bats are gone.
So, but I'm sure that when they visit, that they will have information about.
I don't plan to even.
but they catch them and release them.
We're getting a call. I think
Yeah.
cautious question has been asked and answered.
Yeah, but
If
I,
we're curious about the bats, we can call her.
I will report at the next meeting.
If you have any bats in your place.
Now you're the bat liaison?
Yes, bats
what's that
and-
song?
I'm gonna have to start calling.
So I'm not gonna encourage you to go down this road, but thank you all so much for your time. I
Thank
really
you.
do.
Thank
you for
Yeah.
I know they're so concerned about the bats and just pick them up and relocate.
Thank you and LCPC for all your hard work.
Right.
Do you have anything else?
No, I think that's it for today, but I appreciate your time.
Thanks for
Thanks,
coming.
Tasha.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
You've helped Johnson a lot.
If you can do anything with the pilot payment, that would be great.
Yes.
We're on it. I just had to throw that one in.
I understand that there is discussion of that among legislative leaders already.
I'll send you an email that I sent to our legislative delegation and Ted Brady. It's something you should probably be aware of too. Hadn't thought of that.
Did you do this as a select board member or as the board member of the CPC?
Select board.
I did it as a member, as a select board
I'm
member.
just kidding.
$140,000 back.
That's a nice way to put it, Mike.
All right, next item should be pretty quick for the board.
I move
Or right up.
that the town give their employees a $150 holiday bonus.
Motion on the floor, is there a second?
Come on, Michael, pony up.
It's pretty good, a lot of people just get a hand.
I'm not even getting a ham.
You know, it's like get a thank you probably.
The ham would cost at least that.
$150 ham, why?
I just bought a 13-pound ham today on sale for $13.
This matches what the village is doing.
All right,
I'll second that.
okay, there's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
I guess I'd like to, when did the village go to $150?
On Monday.
This past meeting. Your last meeting.
There you go.
Well, I can say that it's probably been over 20 years at $100. So maybe 150 is okay. I don't know, but
Well, what we really ought to do is say 200.
That's on the record, Michael.
how about 155?
This is supposed to be a joint decision,
Yeah, it would be nice to.
so this is our joint decision, 200. Just kidding, you trustees don't get all wound up.
I can call the question and we can all deny it. Motion.
Let's see.
I think we're on to decision making. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, and the ayes have it. All right. On to the budget. Now we have a couple other additional items.
Can we do those additional items before we get into the
Would
budget?
you like to?
I'd rather, because I think we're
Fine.
gonna be toast by the time
We need to have this special meeting for the budget.
That's one of the additional items.
Is this the latest and greatest, Tom, what I've got paper wise right now?
Hang on. Does the rest of the board want to do the rest of the additional things?
Yes.
The budget?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I want to stay till midnight.
Meeting minutes correction. That was Duncan.
can I do that?
Yep.
Okay, so on the November 18th minutes, page 4, item 8, Rosemary handed out the budget status report. We budgeted 600K for pilot. We received 447K, down from 492 last year. Duncan asked Tom to find out why the amount was lower this year. I'm going to propose that we review or that we adopt a corrected set of minutes, which would read, Rosemary handed out a budget status report. We budgeted 460,000 for pilot. We received 447,028, which was down from 494,233 last year. So those would be my proposed changes for a corrected set of minutes.
Motion.
That would be a motion, and the motion would be to correct the minutes and for the board to adopt essentially a corrected set of minutes.
Because you said 600,000.
The minutes right now say 600K.
Why it said that?
I think it's.
What'd you say, Don?
Yeah, probably. It was, 600 and 460K. You could easily confuse those.
Yeah, I was gonna say, 'cause we have never been near 600.
Yeah. So the actual budget amount was 460K. The actual amount that we received was 447,028, and it was down from 494,233.
Are you saying that I thought we had 490, the 493 was what we had received and our projected was 447. I'm just trying to make
What
sure.
we actually received was 447,028.
That's what we actually
Yeah,
received.
that's what, and we
That's what I
budgeted
received.
460.
Not totally budget.
Yeah,
In the prior year, we actually received 494, 233.
Do we need a second?
Yes,
I'll second.
all right, further discussion? Seems like a pretty easy amendment to me.
So is this a motion to approve the minutes with just that change, or just a motion to make the change now and then you'll approve them at the next meeting?
A change and adopt, so it's
Okay,
one slate. Right?
Yep.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, and the ayes have it.
You got the numbers, Donna?
I think I do.
Tom,
Okay.
there's a dog
If you need
update,
them, let them know. Let me know.
possible action item.
Yeah, so we have on November 27th, a dog came into possession of Johnson. Initially went to the Hyde Park shelter in June by a Johnson ACO under the direction of the sheriff, and it was a very large cluster about how the dog used it. The sheriff agreed to pay the first from June to November. So kudos, they took care of it, but they don't have a mechanism for getting rid of this dog. We do under our ordinance. And if you read our contract with the sheriff, there might have been some debate whether or not an acting ACO accepted the dog under the permission of the select board, or, you know, it was open-ended. It wasn't a great scenario for either party. That dog was advised to be euthanized by the state's attorney, and we are actually pursuing that. With that said, our lead ACO was not getting back to me and did finally today. But I just wanted to know, is it ACOs under the authority of the select board or under the guidance of the administrator? Like, is that like, who do they report to? This is a scenario where I would have loved to intervene a lot maybe sooner before this meeting, but I just was unsure of like that flow chart of supervision. We're paying $25 a day for a dog, and I think you've probably seen my emails like asking for updates, and what do you guys want? What do you think? Whatever you want, I can make happen by changing documents.
But if the state's attorney says the dog should be put down, the board should go along with the state's attorney.
It's more about, can I step on the ACO's toes to say, why isn't this happening? You need to do X instead.
Yeah.
You know, but it doesn't look, I don't know that I talked to Rosemary, she thinks they're under your supervision. But it's not clear. What do you want it to be? Do you want them to report to me, or do you want them to report directly to you? Or not me, it's.
And the generalized question.
ACO is strictly animal control, not health.
Right.
Right, but they're the same people.
It's a bit cumbersome if all of those questions have to come to a board that meets every 2 weeks.
I don't have a problem with them being a report to the town administrator. Aren't they municipal ticketing officers? Does that play in any weird role? I don't know.
Well, they're ultimately answerable to the animal control ordinance itself. I mean, and state statute. I mean, there's specific state statute with regard to public notification prior to euthanizing. Have they gone through the 10-day posting? Even if the attorney general says euthanize it, the town is still obligated.
This is the problem, is I can't get a clear answer. Where if I had some authority to say they report to me, then I could go to the next ACO and say, hey, I'm not hearing notice. I don't care if it's noticed twice, but at least then I can give direction. I can't give direction if they're not reporting to me though. And so I'm totally, I would have loved the scenario where they reported to me, because when that dog would have been no longer in the possession of Johnson, and we're paying $25 a day for a bureaucratic process just because of the lack of clarity.
Well, it begs the question of whether or not the ACO officer is doing what they should be too.
Well, I mean, but there's, if they're,
Does.
I think that's a great question, and there's no way to check on it when you don't have clear supervisory roles, right?
Well, even if we say no, they have to report to us. I'm out of the loop. I don't know how long that dog's been there. Did anybody else know that? And if the ACO is reporting to you or keeping you updated, are they reporting to you, Evan?
I mean, no, I don't think they're reporting to anybody.
That's my thought. A lot of people should be reporting to us.
They got
I
January 6th.
guess,
So you want our authority, you want authority from us to act on your own volition.
I think that clear direction would be great. So then I can just say, all right, if there's no response by 4 PM, we're moving in this direction with or without you. I could do that before and this would have been resolved. I didn't really have that authority prior.
I don't mind giving them that.
Certainly not.
I don't think.
We can move this forward.
Well, then I could write the notice myself and put it in the newspaper and step on toes if they're reporting to me, but I can't do that now.
is there a hierarchy of animal control officers?
There really isn't, and that's another thing that. You know, when we go to reappoint animal control officers, we should probably think about that.
I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, I don't either.
If there's a hierarchy, it could be pretty
How
straightforward.
did we make it this far without
I think it just worked.
knowing this? Past select board members.
Well, you probably had an animal control officer that's doing their job correctly.
Yeah,
We
it's
did.
not a problem.
Dick LeMayo has made sure things got done, and he didn't, yeah, I mean, it's a basic lack of follow-up on the part of the ACO officer,
Does the
but
ordinance say anything about it? They report to.
I don't remember. I don't remember. But I think there is an animal control officer job description, isn't there?
That's what I was looking for.
I didn't bring group to the meeting. Just
Mhm.
worried about this.
Yeah.
I have no issue, you know, delegating Tom to be the overseer supervisor of the animal control officers. But I think the follow-up needs to be to check if there are other things that we need to do, such
Yeah.
as amend the ordinance or change job descriptions.
Absolutely, and if. I would think of it more, I'm acting on your behalf so that no big decisions will be made without you knowing, and it would probably come in the form of an email. Hearing no reservations by. So that way it's still ultimately, you have the stop sign, but at least until we make those changes anyways.
Yeah. Well, I really don't want to pay $25 a day for a dog that should be euthanized.
We need a motion.
So move.
I'll second.
There's no motion.
what did you
Gotta be a
move?
little bit
I
clearer.
move that we give authority to the animal control officer to the town administrator.
That was your motion. Is there a second?
Yes.
Any further discussion?
It's a big responsibility, you know.
I. Stepped in the fall and that's what Betsy did, took care of that situation. Now I'm stepping in.
Hey guys,
I was just good reading.
Here he is, right here.
actually, I'm away from watching the thing. There is a hierarchy, his dean. He's our lead officer and health officer for both. For animal control and health officer.
Okay,
Is that like an internal, that's like an internal structure that the three of you guys kind of came up with?
No, Brian put into place, he picked the lead. He just happened to be dean.
Well, if he did that, he didn't bother to tell the select board, so. I think
So,
Not
but
anymore.
the motion is just animal control right now, not
Yeah.
health.
not
Yeah.
a specific person.
They were
Yeah.
just kind of combined, since we're the same ones, basically.
I know about.
So he just gave lead health officer, lead animal control at the same time.
Well, there you go. What do we know?
That does work.
Yeah.
Well, it says in the appointments, the first constable was Dean Locke.
Yep.
And then animal control officers, Christopher, BK, Putnam.
So we don't have any conflict with this motion that we're about to make.
I mean, it just,
The only conflict I have is we should put something down in writing. I have no problem with it. I just think a future board is not gonna go, oh yeah, the meeting on December 16th.
Well,
Yeah, if this motion passes, I'm gonna make a motion that we ask Tom to investigate what other things we need to do to make it
More formal.
codify
Okay,
it.
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it.
perfect. That makes it a lot easier
All
going through Tom.
right, sounds good. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Aye.
Good night.
I want to hear your motion.
I'm gonna make a motion that we ask Tom to investigate any and all amendments, changes necessary to implement the motion that was just made. Including job descriptions, looking at the animal control ordinance to see if needs to be any clarification in there.
Second.
All right, motion a second. Is there any further discussion?
You got that downtown?
Yeah.
Do you want that put on old business or do you want it reported by a certain time?
I think I want, because of the situation that we have right now, I'm probably gonna do this first thing in the morning. I think, because there's a pressing matter that we need to like step on.
Okay,
till-
so
Yeah,
you,
but this what we're doing now, you want a couple weeks to report back what we're.
Yeah,
And if it's useful, there is a statutory process that needs to be followed in order to euthanize a dog. And I think it takes 10 days.
it is 10 days.
So I would further make a motion to authorize Tom to publish or do whatever needs to be done to get the process to euthanize the dog in motion
Second.
ASAP.
Then
Well,
that's $250.
How many motions do we have?
how many motions are we stacking up here?
No, let's.
Oh, we haven't
Yeah.
We
let's
haven't
vote
actually
your
voted
first
on it.
one.
Yeah, okay.
That's null and void, Donna. All those in favor with Duncan's motion?
His
For
original
Tom.
motion. For
To
Tom
look,
to
okay.
investigate, yeah.
All right, all those in favor with that signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it. Okay.
Now I'm gonna,
You were stacking up on us. there.
yeah, I'm sorry about that. I got carried away. So now I would make a motion to authorize Tom to publicize or do whatever is necessary according to statute with regard to euthanizing this dog. My concern is we do it legally because the town has been sued for this in the past.
Second.
All right, there's a motion, and a second. Any further discussion?
Is this? Just trying to clarify whether we're telling you to euthanize this dog or not, we're just saying.
We are planning to euthanize. It's just following, make sure we follow.
Go through the formal process, formal legal process.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
So this is all coming down to somebody that's been appointed not doing their job correctly, right?
Maybe we should do that in the executive session.
Okay.
I don't have any problem saying it. You've seen the emails, I've seen the emails.
Yeah,
It hasn't gotten done.
The deal is, if we appoint somebody and they're not doing their job, we can unappoint them. So what's the problem?
Or we can certainly look at that at the time when it comes due. I guess we could go under the, yeah, at town meeting day, we can certainly take that into consideration between now and town meeting day. We've authorized Tom to be the supervisor of those individuals. So if they don't shape up and do what needs to be done at town meeting day, we could certainly,
But you have to wait till town meeting.
we don't.
This is an appointment.
Yep.
It's not an election.
It is.
So,
Okay. Any more short ones that are on this list?
Yeah. You didn't write down all the additions.
I just don't know.
What if I had a heart attack in the middle of the meeting?
Make a motion.
I haven't one.
We need to set a date for a budget only meeting and we probably need to set two. But let's start with one. What works in everybody's calendar?
When you want it.
So we're in January now, right?
Could we do one before January 6th and then do the Monday between the 6th and the 20th?
We could.
Monday between the 6th and the 20th.
We can
is
do
the
whatever we need
trustees'
to do.
regular
I'm,
meeting.
I'm just gonna make a general comment. That, and I know that you already said that you want to take care of this pressing issue with the dog, which I agree with. But I really think that we're getting down to crunch time. And Tom needs to be able to devote as much of his time as he possibly can to getting the budget in shape so that when we meet, we can actually approve a budget at some point.
It's not very many weeks left.
We're running into crunch time. I mean, we've got.
Are we ahead of where we were last year, or are we behind?
I think we're ahead, but last year was also crunch too, so.
It's always crunch.
So it's
I mean, it was,
We've got stuff in here, that's really, we can't do a whole lot without.
There are some things,
They're out.
I mean, we could just not do it.
So are we gonna pick a date? Are we gonna do like the evening of the 24th?
You can.
Oh, I get the joke.
Christmas Eve,
Jason
that's
said
a double knee slapper. Mark.
his goal to finish all the numbers for capital equipment is by January 1st. Because he's having trouble getting people coming back to him. What we could do is just, that sheet is holding up a significant portion of the.
I mean, that's 3 lines in the budget,
Okay.
right?
That's
It's 3
fine.
links. If 3 cells aren't linked, everything else is agreed on, I would say we're in pretty good shape.
Cool. It's great at that.
But if you want to go for. You said one before the 6th of January. And you were gonna get the rest of the numbers by the 1st of January, so you're saying the 3rd of January would be good?
That's a Friday.
It is,
But what about the 30th of December?
it's a Monday.
If we meet the 3rd of January, and then we're gonna talk about it again on the 6th of January. There's not a lot of action time. To like call people and like, get numbers in.
Yeah, I mean, considering we've got Christmas, you might as well blow off next week in terms of.
Unless you
Bing.
wanna do the 23rd, but that's. The 27th.
But that doesn't give you any time really to, between now and the 23rd to pull shit together.
It's a week.
Yeah.
You can pull something together in a week.
Yeah.
When do you think you could have a game day draft that we could actually go over line by line?
We can go really close, line by line, and then when we hit an orange, or we hit a color, we just. Throw in last year's number just as a placeholder. And if you see a problem, it would be nice to like, just start. Last year, I remember we did kind of sections and we bounced around and it was hard to follow. But if we even could start tonight and just like start at the top and just run through. And if you have a problem, like then it's said, and then I have a week, I'm sure I could get an answer in a week. I have 3 meetings this week already for the budget and it's just, they're gonna keep piling on based on what comes out of tonight.
Well, let's start.
Well, we have the memo questions to deal with. Right? That's the form that we've been.
So are we gonna try and set a meeting or go through the
I
list?
want to know a date. That we can have a budget only meeting. My first year, it took 2 full meetings. It took 1 full meeting to go through every line. To get to highway, it took 1 full meeting for highway.
If we,
When I say full meeting, I'm talking like 3 hours.
if we did the 23rd, knowing that there are people that have probably big commitments. Could we get at least 2 people?
Well, we need a quorum.
Yeah, 2 people is just a working group.
Which is okay, I mean, it's still, you get a lot of information done.
I can do the 23rd.
I'll do the 23rd.
Not that I'll give you a lot of help, but.
Yeah, I could probably do the 23rd. I've got. A family Christmas thing during the day, but
Are they coming to your house and you're gonna say,
no, I'm going to my ex-wife's in Fairfield, but it's a day thing, so. So I can probably do an evening meeting.
Eggnog.
Hmm.
Is there eggnog?
you're gonna be spending money on?
There's gonna be homemade Baileys.
It doesn't matter if you guys can get 3 people.
It could improve my
I'll have to
mood,
be
Peter.
Then we gotta be warm.
Yeah.
Let's do the 23rd.
Then bring it with you.
You wanna do, can we do like 6 o'clock?
I would love if it was like 4 o'clock, or as soon as Duncan can get back.
Well, no, Evan's got probably work. Are you working the 23rd?
He's on vacation.
Yes, I am.
He is working the 23rd.
Doesn't he start his day at like 3:30, so he's done at like
No, that's the town worker.
Yeah, I don't get to leave and come back.
We, 6 or 6:30.
Or 4. You can't do early. Evan, look at me. You're saying yes, no?
We could go for, you guys wanna try 5?
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I can fit it in yet, but at least if I have a target, that's good.
Want to try, we'll start with 5 and see what happens.
Tom can warn it for 5 if I can't make it,
I'll run
that's
it.
fine.
We'll blow through this budget before Evan gets here.
There you go.
Do we need to set up another one?
That could be the second agenda item
On the 30th.
on the 23rd.
I mean, on the 20th.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you'll warn it 2 agenda items, Tom. Right, good?
it's additions and budget.
No, I guess, yeah, additions. Additions, budget and potential future budget meeting, I guess. Okay. So. What would you like to cover? With this budget?
I mean, if we just run through these 10 questions, I'll go pretty quick. Provides direction.
Number 52 is ridiculous.
Yes, completely.
Welcome out to Atlanta.
Is this the Historical Society
Yeah,
Yes.
It is.
rent?
yeah,
To
but it's not the historical society paying rent, it's the back department.
The apartment, that's what the apartment is paying for rent.
Okay.
So one of the, historically, Peter, the person that rents that has performed some functions for the historical society, including taking the garbage down. But he's also in the past been responsible for sort of being the liaison with the upstairs tenants. There are no upstairs tenants in it. So that part of his job responsibilities is gone.
He has been very helpful with when alarms go off, he calls.
Yep.
And when he does keep an eye, he does like a caretaker role,
Yep.
shoveling snow, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah,
So it should be factored in somehow, or we have to plan on that somewhere else in the budget.
Well, I'm sure that would still take place with an increase in rent.
What's the market rate for a single bedroom apartment, Mark?
Are the utilities included in that?
I
Twice what he's
believe they
paying?
are.
So,
Well, electric definitely is, because it's all, the
Yeah.
whole building's on
Yeah,
one
electric,
meter.
heat, everything, I think he pays for internet. Right, we pay for the trash.
I mean, that is just.
It's a pretty good deal. It's a good deal.
very good deal.
But he does, I don't want to dismiss.
Well, certainly.
The work-
I'm
the
not
work that he
trying to
does.
either, and I mean, I consider him a friend of mine, but that is really.
It's a good deal. Good deal.
Well,
Does anybody have a proposal of what this suggested increase should
It would
be?
be half of fair market rent to go to 700.
Oh. Just gave me chills.
I was gonna propose going from 550 to 6, but
I was gonna go to 650.
I'm just
I mean, but you
What
are,
you say, Mark, 750?
700. I said
would be half of fair market
would
rent.
be basically half of fair market rent right now.
Oh, yeah, I mean.
for
really.
A 1 bedroom,
with all utilities paid.
with all utilities paid, it would probably even a little bit more than 1,400.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I think the ones that Mr. Mink is advertising right now, a studio is like 1,150, that's one room. With a bathroom.
He's
A
got
one
really-
bedroom is around 14.
He's got a bedroom, a living room and a living room kitchen combo.
It's pretty close to a studio.
Yeah, it's
Well,
not
it's a
much.
one bedroom apartment. He's got.
It's a one-bedroom
bedroom
apartment.
Separate from a kitchen. It's a one bedroom apartment.
Yeah, and he's got a washer dryer.
I think
And-
700.
Which we paid.
I think 700 is very.
I mean,
Very fair.
I gotta agree with the guy that's in the game and an expert. I guess I could get behind 700.
Are you making a motion, Mark?
I'll make a motion to increase the rent to $700 a month. It seems, I mean, he's got a washer and dryer, we're paying all the utilities, that is half or less than half of fair market value.
So your motion is to raise the rent to six.
Just to $700 per month.
8,400 in the budget.
There's
Yeah.
a motion on the floor. Is there a second? I'll second it.
Well, good.
Is there any further
You did
discussion?
something. Wow, that's impressive.
Trying to keep things moving here.
Let's keep going.
Is there any
but-
further discussion?
Yeah, there is. When would this, I'm assuming that when would this be effective? When does his lease come due? I don't remember when his lease comes
I
due.
don't know, I think would probably be one, yeah, that's a great question. The end of a new lease, which I've never seen or signed, I've seen a signed version. I've been here over a year and you would think it would have been renewed by now.
Yeah. I don't-
It's like in
I don't think he
April
has
or
a
something,
current-
isn't it?
I don't think he has a current lease.
You don't think he does? We should check with
He needs
Rosemary
60
because
days notice.
I think that's one of the last things Brian did.
Really?
Okay.
was
let's check-
execute a
check when
new
his
lease.
lease
That's
is
a
up
1 year.
And give them 60
Was it one or
days
two?
notice.
I don't want to close the file I have open.
Start 1 March. Is that what you're saying, basically?
I'm just saying, find out if he has a lease. And give him notice at least 60 days before the end of his lease. But, you know,
Do you think that should be, and then, do you want this, the budget starts July 1st, do you want the new lease to start July 1st with the rate, or do you want it to be?
just whenever his lease is up.
For some dumb reason, I think it's April, but
And if there's no active lease, which if it's probable because, I've never seen anything. If there's no active lease, you want it to be 60 days as soon as possible. So there's
60 days from today, or 1
So
March.
or like 1 March or,
let's do 60 days from 1 March. That puts us,
No, 60,
he's saying from January 1st.
January 1st.
you have to give him. Well, yeah, we could do it from January.
January 1st, so that'd be 1 March.
Yeah.
If you don't find a lease, start it at 1 March.
And I know there is a template for a lease. There may not be a current signed lease, but there's definitely a template for a lease.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't have to reinvent that.
I mean, you need to dig into that. We can't be willy-nilly renting without leases.
The whole idea of renting as a municipality is terrifying.
As it should be. It's terrifying as a private individual.
Okay.
You want me to text him?
I'm gonna call it right now. I think we're past discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And the ayes have it.
That'll help us a little bit.
Your next question was line 124. Right?
1.4 is, the estimated fund balance to reduce taxes to be determined. There is discussion that Duncan brought up, I believe it was last meeting or the meeting before. Is this the year where we want to change the process and we're gonna keep moving with the estimated surplus?
That doesn't. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, in my brain, that has nothing to do with what we're applying here. Because we have our surplus from last year. right?
Well, I think the question Tom's getting at, which I think is legitimate, is the number, he's got cell AN 124 in orange.
Yeah,
So that figure really is determined by what we estimate the year-end balance is gonna be. So we don't, I mean, 110 is a made-up number right now. We don't really know until we get all of those year-end stuff at the very end plugged in. We don't really know what we can apply. But his question is, do we change the process from trying to do this massively complicated estimating business to using the prior year's financial audited figure?
right, but when we talked about that, wasn't there a conversation about seeing if we could get an audit in time for?
Yes, there was.
And there was never an answer. Who was looking into that?
It's supposed to be.
So you're asking us if we want to end it, but we don't have answers about previous question. I don't know. I'd love to say, yeah, let's end it, but
I'm guessing
We
for
can't
this
afford
year, Tom, we're probably gonna have to continue on the same
Yeah,
concept we have in the past, but
I spoke with Rosemary today about auditing and. I don't think it's possible to. If we plan on zero. I guess is what you would do. Is instead of planning an estimated surplus, let's plan on spending nothing. And then making a decision on June 30th, as opposed to predetermining, if that makes sense.
But how do we then put a budget together?
That becomes zero.
I hear.
right, if we put that,
which is gonna have a huge impact on
That's-
the amount to be raised
Yeah,
by taxes.
That's why this is so important, actually. It's because the way to end it is you have to stop it. And at some point, you have to pull that trigger, and when you do that, whether you have an audit or not, you need to make that decision with that budget.
Another way that we might possibly be able to do that, I mean, we're getting into the weeds.
No, but it's important.
It is, but I'm wondering if there's some way we could make that transition, but still budget an estimated amount of the audited fund balance. It's a shot in the dark. We wouldn't absolutely know what our actual fund balance is gonna be when we built the budget.
I don't know about you, but I'm not in the mood to zero it out this year.
I'm not either. Yeah.
So,
And we're probably never gonna be in the mood to do that, because
No,
we're
but-
always gonna be looking at these kinds of increases.
but no, we're not always gonna be looking at these kind of increases, hopefully. I mean, last year it wasn't, what was our increase last year? 2?
I would like to see all the cash that the town has on hand. It's not set aside for any particular purpose. Be used to reduce taxes.
I mean, I would like to zero that line out someday.
So I made one change on line 43. There was the amount to come out of the highway reserve. In your spreadsheet, it's 0, and my spreadsheet, it's 0, but one thing I said earlier is I'm just plugging in last year's figure until that capital spreadsheet is done. Just by doing that puts us at 6.7% increase instead of which is much more reasonable.
Can I also point out that percent change column that you've got is the formulas aren't right?
Tell me what it should be.
It needs to be FY26 minus FY25 divided by
we need to divide by
FY25.
AK5.
Say that.
Divided by FY26 minus FY25.
Yeah.
Divided by FY25, not 26.
I believe I said that in the email.
So I pulled that out of last year's spreadsheet, so it probably was wrong.
No, the one that was in the town report was correct, and the one that you sent us after Susan and Duncan.
I didn't
was
change the
correct.
formula, I just changed.
Something happened somewhere along the line
Did we
because
start off the wrong revision?
No, this is great. No, I mean, we're solving the problems. It's great.
Yeah, so if you just, copy and paste that all the way
Yes.
down through, that'll take care of all of those.
Awesome.
And the way you can test it and prove it, I think I sent you an email, you can, if you look at line.
No, I mean, I super appreciate this. This is,
Line 8, tax sale redemption. Or line 7, late tax penalty is going from 15,000 to 17,500. If you actually multiply 15,000 by 16.2%, you'll come up with 17,499.99. So right now it's in there as 14%, but it really needs to be 16.66% or something like that. And if you put the formula in, it'll do that.
So you know where we're headed with this, Tom?
already done.
How much is on hand?
So all these percentages
Cash
need to be
is
changed,
not
Already
set
done.
aside
I just
for
finished
something
it.
else.
but I just don't
I'd like to
have it
find
in
that
front
out.
of me.
And all of the ones that are in here now are low.
Tom,
Yes.
you know how much money we have in cash, it's not set aside for any particular.
I don't. We, I can show you a
Last year.
spreadsheet that's not updated.
Well, that's more good.
Or,
Well, I'd like to see exactly how much money we have on hand that's not set aside for something in particular.
Have you
that we
seen
could
this?
use to offset taxes.
Rosemary gave us that several meetings ago. That's our cash on hand
That's
as
the
of,
same one.
But I thought there was a different one floating around somewhere.
All right.
My feelings about all this cash, that'd be in a high interest account.
Yeah, certainly. Your next question is line 156. Does the board want you to relay anything
yeah,
at
we're
that
just,
meeting?
I can tell you, I did a quick calculation.
Yep.
And I just took the amount of the
RFP,
RFP, which is 150,000.
yeah,
You indicated that we had 117,000 in the fund, basically 97 plus 20. So
Yes.
all I did was took 150, subtracted 117, divided it by 3. And we need to budget at least 13,000.
that's what's written in there now.
Yeah,
In orange, but, I'm gonna meet with Justin tomorrow, and is there anything, this is like our window to change that right now, so.
well, if we budget 13, that's gonna give us 39,000. Which will give us $1,000 cushion from what we're gonna need for the reappraisal.
Does that include his assistant?
That's a different,
Different.
it's a completely different one. This is a reappraisal
Oh, okay.
reserve fund.
And the
Injection.
thing to remember about that line item is that 13,000 is basically what we're getting from the state of Vermont
It's revenue.
for maintenance to the equalized grand list.
Yeah.
So we're taking the full amount that we're getting from the state, putting it into the reserve or the reappraisal reserve fund.
So you just did the calculation based on what we talked about last meeting.
Yeah, so I saw, pretty much exactly what he said is in my question, it's the RFP minus reserves divided by number of years. If I wrote 13,000 in, if we leave it at 13,000, it does not raise taxes because we're also getting 13,000. But if there's anything else you guys want to make sure, whether it's an assistant, whether it's concerns, then I'm gonna talk to Justin tomorrow and get those numbers for anything else that you want to add. That's gonna make that number go above, break even, and raise taxes.
It'll make the reappraisal reserve fund cost go above, or it's a different line.
So we're gonna spend 13,000. This 13,000 to go into the reappraisal right here. But say you say at part of the reappraisal, we actually want to take a bigger role, or we looked at this and we just whatever open concern you have, this is your window to do so while we're budgeting for a 3-year budget process. If you want anything else that's not part of that RFP, this is your last chance to say, you know, we better budget an additional 10,000 for staff. And then it'll make it 16,000 a year.
How's that reserve fund worded? Anybody know?
It might even be statutory, because I think the state gives it to you, you have a grand list maintenance payment, that's what that is.
Right.
And so I'm assuming that the select boards can't touch it for anything else other than what the state gave it to you for.
Yeah, you couldn't, but I think your point is, could we hire other, could we hire our own listers to assist with the process of?
My point is
Yeah,
like. Depending upon how. The reserve fund is worded, that's not the line to inject money in to account for extra staff time.
It is actually, so this is money that goes out into that fund.
Yes, and my question is, how is the fund worded? Because if it's specific on what it's spent on. And we inject money in there for another reason. And if it says for reappraisal only, I guess we could read into that and say. Excess staff time is part of the cost.
Well, the root question is, if there's no concerns, it stays at 13 and we're good. If there are things, if there's other things you want to add to the reappraisal, then. We can look into the wording.
Well, the only other way we could do it is add money to the assessor line item
That year.
for the year that we're gonna do it, because. You can only budget 1 year at a time. Right?
Or. Can't we just account for it in the expense of that year? There's another reappraisal line,
So those.
There's another reappraisal line.
isn't there? Or am I wrong about that?
Piece of paper say line 156, when it's really line 157.
Maybe my eyes are off.
It's really easy. I can attest to when you're, when you're looking at a computer screen and you try and go across to hit that line.
Well, I'm over
It can be really hard.
blathering away about the wrong line and saying, well, lister expenses.
I thought there was something under select board expense that excess expenses could be tucked under for that year. Whatever.
So I'm peaceful at 13,000. Can we beat this horse somewhere? Or
Let's get that.
are we done with?
Then we could always.
I mean, the basic question is, do you want to add more? If we add more than 13, that's raising taxes.
Right, so let's keep
If we
working.
leave it at 13, it's a net wash.
Yeah, let's leave it at 13, see where we come out at the end and highlight.
Yeah, and usually we inject surplus into it.
We could always do that.
Yeah,
I'm peaceful.
you're peaceful. I don't want you to have heartburn.
237 to 239 is your next question.
Let's make sure these are crossing over to the right. Or-
This is clumping it all together just because they're right next to each other. Grounds mowing, and then there's cemetery mowing, and I don't. I would love, we had this mowing RFP that went out for 18,000. I would love to put the RFP out, the same one, for the same company, like tomorrow, if you would allow me to, so then we can get next summer's number. And then can we take all the mowing for the town, cemetery, buildings, Legion Field, Old Mill Park, and just make it all one account, one line?
Historic Society,
All of it,
library.
all of it. Straight.
That's a
All ground question for. What about this building here?
Rosemary, what are we gonna do? Tuck it under select board expense?
Well, we have grounds mowing.
Buildings
It's
and
just
grounds.
if the RFP comes back with a whole number. Right now, we ask them to break it out, and it might actually inflate our costs a little bit, where if we say, hey, we have this big chunk of. All of these properties. How much for the whole kit and caboodle? And. But if we put it under one line. Then Rosemary's not taking each bill and separating it out. we don't actually, you know, it's, I don't know that it's a true reflection of how much we actually spent on cemetery mowing. It's just a portion of the RFP. But so if we just make all the town property be one line item, it simplifies the budget process and the RFP process. And can I have your permission to put that mowing RFP for next year out tomorrow?
So what you're saying is Rosemary gets a bill for $1,000.
Yeah,
It's not broken out on that bill.
because
She's manually breaking it out.
exactly, because because the RFP had all the town properties.
I would be okay with just having one line item for mowing. And now the problem is, as you know, as long as there's 3 years of history and a line item,
Can't get rid of it.
we can't get rid of the line item, but after 3 years, we could actually delete cemetery mowing and Legion Field mowing and
Yeah, rec field mowing's under public works.
yeah, it is. It's under Public Works because the highway department used to do the mowing.
Can,
Oh, really?
So is that, where is that?
it's like way
Bottom.
down 58.
It's under
like the very
highway.
last one, it's like the last page.
So do you wanna come back, throw that in here also?
Yeah.
All mowing.
All mowing.
And we're gonna go over budget, I think.
$30,000 in one line.
The RFP was more than we
Not 30.
budgeted, so it's gonna go over, but can I put an RFP out tomorrow to the same companies I talked to last year? And just say, hey, can we get a price for budget? There, I think it should come back pretty quick.
It'll come back inflated. It's okay.
Yeah.
Is the board okay with Tom circulating an RFP for mowing?
Sure.
Is that,
You
have
good?
you ever
Yeah.
done this, Earl?
so-
What's that?
Have you ever put a mowing RFP out in the fall for the following year?
No, I always put it out in the spring. Not to get a budget number, but to get an actual number.
Yeah.
But I don't care. I mean, if it's,
Do you think they, is there a problem? If I put it out now, would they stick to it?
I'm saying,
Yeah.
tell me what the price of gas is gonna do
Yeah.
and the price of labor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm okay with.
I think the fundamental question really though is, can we consolidate all the mowing into one line?
I don't see
Fine
why.
with that.
I'm good with it.
Does the village pay for the mowing around partially around this building?
Well, when the RFP gets sent out, there's, you know, like this property is, the village pays half and the town pays half. And then the village has their own RFPs, so they include things like Cold Spring and the mowing of the medians on Main Street.
Is the same person doing? Okay,
Two different companies.
I'm peaceful with combining it.
It's two different companies?
Yeah.
Really? Jesus.
Oh, whatever. Did you have a question about cemetery maintenance?
Oh, just, I see that it's 10 grand. We haven't spent that in a long time. I think that's a place we can cut until we have a firm maintenance schedule or plan. There's a lot of maintenance that has to be done, but we don't have a plan to implement that maintenance. That's kind of a problem. And so I think next year, our focus should be making a plan and reducing the budget line this year for next year to match the actual implementation of that 5-year, 10-year, whatever plan. I'm imagining like every year, one cemetery gets stones done and cleaned, and for every 4 years, you hit all. That every 4 years, every cemetery gets cleaned up. I don't know what that looks like, but. Right now, we're just throwing a number out to the wind and we're not using it, so there's an opportunity to chisel.
The reason we're not using it is because we haven't put out RFPs for services, so.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and the reason that we increased from 7.5 to 10 is because we got an RFP out for the fence around Grove Cemetery. You remember that? That was 14,000 or something, and we said, boy, if we spread that over 2 years, we would eat up the 7,500 for both. We wanted to have a little bit of money.
And we ended up spending like 2,500 on the fence and doing it ourselves.
And the cemetery maintenance line used to be, what line item is that?
37.
237,
238 on my copy.
238.
Yeah.
Okay.
The 238 cemetery.
That line item used to be 10,000. It was 10,000 for a long time,
Oh my God.
and we spent every nickel of it. In fact, and then there came a time when we couldn't get, we had people bid on it, but they didn't do the work.
Mhm.
So it didn't, it didn't get done. So we didn't spend the full amount. So I think, is it,
I would be interested in getting RFPs out there to get the work done.
Yeah, I know this guy out of Marshfield who specializes in that. And BCA, I think has a list of contractors. Wouldn't be too hard to get it done.
How long do you think a plan would take? How much are you proposing shaving on the line?
I would drop it back to 7,500 until we can justify using it all. That's the only reason to not do it. But I think if we had an appointed sexton and that sexton was well connected to the select board and the town administrator, you could probably have a cemetery plan in a very short amount of time.
yeah, and I can tell you that I've worked in all the cemeteries, I guess, now. We can spend $10,000 real easy and not make that big a dent in it.
Exactly.
I worked for 3 years in Whiting Hill Cemetery, and I didn't spend anywhere near the $10,000. I got half done.
Getting up to speed is so expensive. Previous place, it costs, I think it was 18,000 the first year to get the cemeteries up to snuff. Just cleaning and foundations and uprighting stones. And then that line item was kept high on purpose to create called a working capital fund. And from that, then you had like 20 grand for when a tree fell and broke like 10 stones. But outside of that, once you get up to snuff, which I think maybe that's what we should do, is leave it at 10, get up to snuff in all of our places. Then you're just doing cleaning, which is like on a, I don't know, 5-year basis, and maintenance as needed. Right now, we are so far behind because nobody's really paid attention. I don't know. That's an assumption, but we need to get back in there with a plan.
And another thing to think about is there's 20,000 in the Evergreen Ledge Cemetery Fund.
That's awesome.
That's just sitting there. And I think I sent out an email that had what the balances were in the various cemeteries. Plot has a fair amount of money too. I want to say $10,000-12,000.
I mean, this is what it's for. It's perpetuity.
Yeah, the issue with Plot and Whiting Hill is those were set up as bequests. And they may say, we should check with Rosemary on this, they may say only the interest can be spent.
Well, let's create a revenue line for cemetery interests and an expense line to match it every year. And then,
We could, and like I said, the 20 grand that is in there from Evergreen Ledge, I don't think there's any strings on it. I think that can be used.
That's the one that probably needs to be up to snuff the most, because if we're using it for open burials, it's gotta look good.
Yeah, it should. I would argue that both Plot and Whiting Hill and Grow is incredibly historically significant because it was the cemetery for the town of Sterling.
Yeah.
And I have ancestors buried in there, but that doesn't have anything to do with it.
It's that fence is sharp.
Yeah.
The Evergreen Ledge is out,
Route 15.
On
and
15.
that's where we're putting new,
That's what?
that's open for new
Yes,
enrollment.
yes. Enrollment, yeah.
All right, so we're keeping that line at 10,000. And we could always shave it when we actually go over every line.
Now that it's on my radar, it was not on my radar last summer to do anything with cemeteries. Now that it's on my radar, I think putting in I'll make it a priority to deal with it.
You want to add that to old business?
Sounds good.
I already did. Actually.
It's on there, I think.
I'm gonna recommend we zero out the clock expense for next year. If there's still $1,000 left, I've had 2 clock people come and look at it. If we get it running, I will wind it for a year for free.
You,
Cause I used to wind it for years and years and it costs $1,000 a year. They paid me $20 a week.
you, skipped a couple of lines, but
Oh, should I need to do that? I'll show you how to wind it, but it runs for like a day and then it stops.
Yeah.
But.
Okay.
because the bucket of rocks hits the column.
Yeah, is it supposed to go a full week if it's
8 days.
8 days?
And typically, if you wind it all the way up, you can get 9 to 10 days.
What if
You-
we just change
Well,
the
you
bucket
could say, well,
Well, but
done,
the
like an
thing
8-day clock.
is,
brass cylinders?
they always did 8 days.
People wait.
So you would wind your clock on Sunday.
Narrower.
And if you, because if it stopped at 7 days and you wound it at. It's Sunday at 9 AM and the next week you wound it at later in the day, it would have stopped.
Yeah.
So they always call it 8-day clock.
Well, why is it stopping for?
The column is.
It's
column,
hitting.
So the box of rocks that comes down binds in it.
Well, why don't you get rid of the box and get a weight the same size as that?
Are you kidding? Those are historic rocks.
Oh, it'd be great. Get a
We could
piece-
probably
get a
do
piece of
that.
Cast iron, small piece of cast iron, and we'll slide right down through there.
We probably could do something like that.
Yeah,
Keep
But it
all
also needs to be, it's not quite as easy as,
I know, but you.
it'd be quite a chore getting that box out of that column.
it has to come out at the bottom.
Yeah.
Well, you can take it out and then weigh it all up and then put a weight the same.
Yeah.
All right.
Simple.
Mark
When do you wanna
skipped
start
2
with
other
that?
lines. Holcomb House maintenance
weather?
plan,
Yeah,
question mark.
hopefully before that.
What do you, so there's a lot of known needs at Holcomb House building, that and the Mill House, both of them. Need attention, but there's no plan, and we're right back at that. And Gene has identified issues that need to be, would be great for. Before, that during this week. Can we identify something to fix on that building, and whether we take it out of the historical line item for building maintenance, or we add something here, but that's town property that's deteriorating because of deferred maintenance. So that porch roof, especially in knee braces, should really be, we can chew off this a little bit at a time, but
Talked about that last year.
That mill house would be cheaper to tear down.
No, but we're talking a Holcomb House.
we have a building
Yeah, no,
number
Mill
as an
House.
So-
RFP.
But that's both of them.
One of the questions is, it's. That number's in there under building maintenance.
No,
It really is capital improvement, isn't it?
That's kind of, yeah. that's
no,
why I-
245 is maintenance. Yeah,
Yeah,
but Tom's question is 246.
yeah, and I guess my comment is there is something in under building maintenance and there's nothing under capital. I think that 7,000 that we budgeted was intended to be to do some of the work. On that, so I'm wondering if that 7 shouldn't be moved down to capital
Shifted
building
one
expense.
cell.
And then maybe put 1,000 under maintenance. It would raise $1,000 in taxes, but it would probably serve the purpose of getting things done.
Well, we just zeroed that out with the class, so let's do that.
Well, I don't think we can change the FY 25 budget. We can't change that, but the FY
You okay with?
final, we could change, and the proposed, we could change.
For the clock?
No, for the Holcomb House.
Oh. Yeah,
Randall's working in grants.
Are you okay with that? So without changing 7, this is maintenance. Can you see that or not really?
I can't. But I got my spreadsheet right in front of me.
Doesn't change. So 1,000 for maintenance next year and 7,000 in capital expense. Is that what you were trying to?
I thought you were talking, take 1,000 out of the 7.
no. We're talking shifting 7 down.
So that way, capital expense is 7,000 And we should leave something in there for building maintenance because something's gonna come up. I mean, it's inevitable.
So yours, were you getting at 1,000 and 6,000?
Got it.
I picked up on that. I don't care. I'm happy either way.
Sure.
You know, you can't do a hell of a lot of capital improvement
Can't
stuff
do
for $6
anything.
grand.
You can't do much maintenance for 1,000.
Yeah, that's true.
Put a little coat of paint on the porch.
Yeah. It's true.
But,
And clock tower 0.
but that would do it. Now we're into my.
Industrial park, you took that away, so that's not a question anymore.
The lips,
Question number 6, we skipped over. Was that not a question anymore?
Oh, I guess I did skip over that, didn't I?
Industrial park expense.
did you decide for Holcomb House?
We're gonna burn it down.
1,000.
1,000 for maintenance and 6,000 for capital.
That's the mill house. That's
Both of those buildings are probably
So the
over, sure.
industrial park, there's two.
I
two
think
parts
we
of
should
this.
probably,
One is. We can leave it at 0. New information tonight about how we're reimbursed. I was unaware that you could get reimbursed in stages.
is your common grant, you expend 100% of it and then ask for reimbursement? Cause I've,
Other grants that we have, that's how it is. AOT grants, you pay 300,000 for paving and then you get your, 175,000 at the end.
right, but that's not so much a progressive project, right? It's a
And then
Wayne project.
the USDA Lenway Lane grant, you're gonna pay 600,000 to get, so it's interesting, and some are deliverables. So at the end of deliverable 1, you get that portion. At the end of deliverable 2, you show some, but I think we'll know more. But I guess I was worried because I've never done an MBRC that we were gonna float 1.8 or 1.6 or whatever it was gonna cost to do this. And so what I wanted to know was, are we gonna do this all within a calendar year? Are we gonna have to float money that we have raised in this year and then float through? And so now I know that that's not the case. So that changes that question here. So we don't know the anticipated expense, and it doesn't matter because we're gonna have revenue.
It's some period of time
Correct.
after we spend it, which. Could that travel through fiscal years, say now?
Good. I mean, it depends on when we get built.
Say no.
Yeah,
Depends on when we get built.
Say
Which
no.
I would argue. The same with a library grant. I would argue for having those be not in the annual operating budget. But to have Rosemary track those as like project
like
budgets.
FEMA, yeah.
Yeah,
I put the library in, take it out.
well, I was gonna be one of my questions is should we treat that as a project? I think it's a lot easier to try. I think it's more transparent
Completely.
for people to see it.
If you don't put it somewhere, if a project budget shows up in the town report, it's great. But what I have seen is from 100% match grants, without it being in the budget at all, you'll actually get 1.68 million and spend 1.68 million in the same year, and it doesn't show up because there's no place for it to go. And so it's almost like this millions of dollars can flow through a town without tracking it. As long as that project budget shows up, that's perfect. That's
Yeah.
probably a cleaner way to do it.
I like the concept because I actually think it's more transparent.
Yeah.
Because you have an actual accounting, of the money received and the money spent.
Certainly be nice with the light industrial park.
Yes.
Because that's gonna take some years.
Yes, absolutely.
And the library could possibly happen.
The library is, and that's
It
100%
doesn't happen if they
match.
don't get
I
the
think the
money.
industrial park is huge because it's 50%. And we're gonna need that for the bond validation or whatever, the RLF or whatever. Perfect. Okay, it is.
But it is gonna scoot through 2 fiscal years, so I do it, right? Gonna be the one-
It could very well, yeah,
Gonna be the one-
most likely will, yeah.
One that's hold on in March.
Which is another good reason to treat it as a project budget, because the project budgets, you'll see the projects in two treasurer's reports.
Yeah, we're planning on a third week of April move while school's closed. It looks like it needs to happen. April vacation of school or end of school June. That it's one or the other, that it's not wise, because power's gonna be shut off, et cetera, et cetera.
Are we gonna need a line of credit for all this? Say no.
No, so the project, right now, cash flow is lined up to do Lendway Lane right away, get reimbursed, then library, get reimbursed. BEC stormwater, get reimbursed. So all the
And
projects.
we have the cash to do that.
Yes, when you time it right with tax bills, and I've already talked to every single grant administration and every single large vendor, MSI, LUNAP, all these people with big bills, so that they know, hey, look, we have a 6-week turnaround for reimbursement. It's gonna be, we might, if we don't have cash flow because of tax bills, we might take your invoice and wait till we get reimbursed before you can cash. We'll write you a check, but you can't cash it for 6 weeks. And everyone is aware of that, but that's what's gonna save us.
And everyone's agreed to that. too.
So far, yeah, and that's what that line of
Get it in
credit.
writing.
Yeah. But this
They're
is,
making so much gravy on the deal.
this is exactly what that line of credit is for, and we don't have a line yet, but we're gonna need a line of credit revenue and a line of credit expense, and then we're gonna need a line of credit interest expense, and that's how we're gonna track the cost of these big projects. When we don't do cash flow well, is the price of not lining up our cash flow is gonna be shown in interest.
So do we need a motion of some kind to alter this budget so that we can set up new project expenses? Is this a new change?
I don't think so. I think Tom can just remove, like with the library, you can remove the revenue and the expense.
Move it on.
And we can instruct Rosemary just to treat it as a project budget.
We're gonna sit down on Thursday, Rosemary and I, for a couple hours. We're gonna hash out everything in purple, and this is gonna be one of the. There's already a bunch of things where she knows she needs to add lines. All we're doing is redirecting her to create what, these are account 50s. She's probably gonna,
Okay.
like 54.
So you don't need any motion from us.
No, I
We're
think,
all peaceful.
but the 5 big projects that we'd like to create are industrial park, library, Holmes Meadow, the stormwater, and Runway Lane. So those will be the 5 new mini budgets.
Yeah,
Moving on.
again, I think that's like, we always have, in the past, we always ran those things through the general annual operating budget.
This is better.
This way is better. It's more transparent, just Joe Citizen can sit down with his book and, really quickly and easily see where the money
So where are we?
comes and goes.
Where are we at?
Question number 8, rec field maintenance, field may need extra work. Isabel already on it, budget higher, leave alone, there will not be enough time to wait for estimates.
So do we wanna right now, if you go to Old Mill Park, can't do anything, but just snow on the ground. We need a Harley rake to run over the baseball diamonds. We need probably a York rake to pull the witchgrass off after. There's just like some deferred maintenance to get caught up.
To pull witchgrass off what?
The diamonds, the infield of the baseball diamonds.
Okay.
So there's a kickboard that's missing boards. There's the playground structure over at Legion Field needs to be ended to slightly, just like little things that have been deferred, that have been noted by Isabel, as well as deferred maybe equipment and things. And so this way, if we put 8,500, you might go under, just fine. It might go over budget. Or do you want to estimate high and hope that you can finish underneath? Or do you just want to skip the baseball diamond, just do the bare minimum on the baseball diamonds, I guess?
Who was that a question to?
The whole board.
If it's just Harley raking and pulling over a York rake, I don't see why we can't get estimates. It's tough to go to the voters in March and say, well, what's the facilities maintenance line item for? I don't know, we have maintenance to do. But we just budgeted high and we hope she comes underneath. Like how can we present a budget to the people to raise money that they will pay without some train of thought?
Well, right now, we have a really skilled rec coordinator who is on her A game, and she's gonna make stuff happen. Problem is, it's the middle of winter and she doesn't know what that is. And so there's two ways to go about this. One is we can budget a little higher and just call it inflation, call it whatever. It's been this way for a few years. Or every time she goes over budget, she just comes to the board and asks permission for this first year until we get a cleaner idea of where we're at. But now we're budgeting now, her plan isn't gonna be able to happen until April or May. So we're a little out.
Oh crap, if she's doing the work in April or May. That just changes the estimated final, which matches budget, that's fine. We're proposing 26, which is after July 1.
Exactly. So that, but like, so she's gonna do a bunch of work that's gonna get caught up. And like,
In this fiscal year.
her plan,
So in a season, she's actually gonna be able to do about $17,000 worth of work.
who knows? Well, I think she was walking around this fall and she was saying, hey,
Give or take.
we need to do something different at these soccer corners. This isn't right. If there's holes in the ground where the flags go. There's just like, she's gonna bring things to you that have yet to be identified, is my point. And those things that are yet to be identified are going to cost money. And so every program she's installing is break even. So the revenue from registration matches the expense. The rest of the budget's really clean. Within the rec budget, this is the unknown.
The facilities.
How do you want to handle that? Whether do you want to leave it alone and when she goes over budget, have her come to you with a request? Or do you want to go a little higher knowing that she's doing a great job? Or do you want to lower it and just have her come to her request every time? And then, this is a matter of process. How do you want her to act next summer?
We haven't hit the 8,500 in any year. I can't see further back than 23, but we haven't hit it yet. And if she spends the full 85 before July 1st, and she's got an $8,500 budget for 26, that seems like a fair amount of money available to me. I'm comfortable.
I'm comfortable with that also. I was there. The only question I have is, who's supposed to pick up the garbage in those cans over there?
That's a lot longer conversation.
Oh, is it? Okay.
The village used to.
It's flowing over. They're flowing over. I go down there pretty regularly.
Yeah.
Public Works, some of that 8,500 is instead of having a metal can ratchet strapped to a post at Legion Field, having trash and recycling that looks like what's at Old Mill Park. So
But
that
at Old Mill Park, there's cans that are just.
Yeah, I think we should come up
Okay.
with a different plan.
I don't mean to distract us.
There's
I do, but
needles and things in those trash cans that pose potential problems for them being.
both beer bottles.
Yeah, maybe we should just get rid of it.
Just another thing, I'm sure Isabel's thought of it, but the path all the way around. We rebuilt that. We
Yeah.
put it in once, then we rebuilt it again, and now it's getting overrun by
That's what
weeds and,
Harley, she wants to Harley rate that too.
yeah. And we need to do it.
Yeah.
And then we need to do. I hate to use the word herbicides, but we need to do something there to keep, whether it's putting salt down or what.
Well, that was her suggestion with the infield is that. Yeah, you have to get ahead of it. Right now, we're not.
Mhm.
And so she thought about using, some chemicals, right? But can we, because if it's proximity to the river, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I
Talk to
think
the Arboretum, they got somebody to spray glyphosate right next to the guy on.
That's the.
To get rid
was
of that.
your one opportunity to call Mike a tree squirter.
All I know is.
All right, are we good on that item?
A lot.
I don't know.
I go there with food, there's always people walking their dogs.
It's an awesome place.
It's a very cool place.
Are we okay with leaving 8,500 year end and 8,500 budget?
I am.
While we're on rec, so we're getting the $25,000 grant for the toddler playground this year, but we're spending the money next year.
This is,
Because
you
you-
know, I just spoke with Rosemary at like 4:30, right before she left. The $25,000 grant came. I have to get this right. That $25,000 revenue showed up in fiscal year 24. I have not verified this. So that should, so we already received that. Either she has a check or it's in the accounting, I don't know. Well, again, it was right as she was walking out the door. That money came in fiscal year 24. There are no plans with that park that we know of to date for that playground equipment. So Isabel is aware of it and she knows she has to put it in. And we have to verify whether we're gonna put it in before July 1st or after.
But if, so that's fine. But if we're spending the money in 26, we need to account for pushing that money over, because right now we're raising $25,000 in tax revenue to spend that
Absolutely.
this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we either need to bump that estimated amount to reduce taxes next year up by $25,000. That's one easy way to shift it
The
from
first,
year to year, or have some sort of.
I'm not ready to answer the question because we need Rosemary to tell us, is the money shown as revenue? Or is the money shown in reserves already? And once we know that, if it's in reserves, we'll show an expense and we'll show a revenue coming out of the reserve.
And it won't affect taxes.
If it just came in as revenue, then it will affect taxes because it already affected taxes on the inside. So once that question's answered, and once I talk to Isabel about the probability of getting a playground ordered and installed, then we'll know whether it'll happen in this fiscal year or next.
It won't happen this year.
What did we spend on the last playground we ordered?
So you wrote that down, make sure you.
No,
Where's
I'm
that-
gonna go in.
where's
deep
that
and
playground
flag
going?
if it- Thank you.
Somewhere.
Very good. We need to know
I'm not seeing
Mark
it
doesn't
in
care.
her list.
Huh?
I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing 25 grand in her list of
Right.
I mean,
reserves that are in
it's
cash.
marked in white, so I thought it was good to go, but it sounds like
It's still moving and I mean, that's an excellent call. That's an excellent catch.
we need to know when it's coming in and when it's going out and show it properly, so we're not raising taxes by 25,000 extra.
I mean, that's it, the way it's listed right now, it's a tax increase.
That's what it would be, Mark.
Yeah.
You get real good at numbers when it comes to raising taxes. You're on it.
We'll be closer to inflation
All right,
than we are.
next up, you have 407. Yeah, does the board want to pop that up to 50,000? And it really should just be fuel. They don't really buy oil anymore. Not that that really matters.
So I spoke with,
Imagine how cool I'd be if you went away for another week.
I could go away for a week.
Brasso's on that and Jim is gonna pull historic, he has 3 or 4 years of data for us on the number of gallons we use at each facility. And then I'm just gonna take those number of gallons and I'm actually gonna update the heat budget for everything based at, I don't know, probably today's rate, I guess. I'm not sure what the best way to do that, but it'll be closer than what we have. I mean, last year we budgeted 42,000, spent 70,000. So.
Yeah, but $11,000 that's inflated because of the messed up key card, right? That we reimbursed the village, so.
That was happening over like 15 years, wasn't it?
But we didn't really overspend by that much. It's bad. I'm just saying there's
I just think
a lag that kind of.
it would be nice to have good data, you know,
Yeah, the year before we spent what, 53,000?
55, yeah,
No, the year before.
I think 50. Yeah, 53 now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, where do you see?
It's
You
not
have to go over to 23s and up a couple of rows.
23, that's on my, if you go on the back, the to do, something to do.
So your question is, do we want to turn that 55 to 50 or leave it at 55? Or do we want to
I
wait
mean,
and get the information?
So the one that went out earlier today, that was, I think 42. The one you sent out at 550 was at 45, but you showed us 55. Right, or no,
I think the one that went out at 555 should have 55 there.
that was it,
Yeah.
It does.
okay.
But moot point, what do you want me to put in there? I think is the question.
I mean, I would put it at 50 for now, we're gonna have to review every line.
And in between times, you're likely to get an estimate from Brasso.
Yeah. And I think we also to go over budget, that's significant. I would be interested in calling another town that has the same number of employees, similar mileage, and wondering what their fuel line item is. Just because there is a known. With five guys, you're gonna have 5 trucks or 4 trucks on the road anyways, 5 trucks on the road, and it is more fuel than having 3 trucks on the road, but if we could find it. It would be nice to know whether we need to get a different key system. If that has had problems over the years, should we start looking at maybe splitting a second pump for the village with the village and buying that? They don't really use a lot of diesel anymore.
The
They're probably,
pump down there is broken right now anyways, isn't it?
it's not tracking gallons, so we don't really know. This is we have to solve problems, and I think one way to do that is this is just off the cuff, not for this budget discussion, but this fuel line going over by 30,000 is appalling, and we should figure that out, right? I mean, it's 40% higher than we budgeted. It would be wonderful if we could find a solution. If it was only the town's tank and the pump broke and stopped tracking gallons, it wouldn't matter. We'd know just by calling Brassos. Right now, we have no idea because there's no controls over it because it's like sharing fuel with Cambridge. You know, we should solve the problem. You know, the problem is that there's a tank that has a shared use with a key system that has failed in the past. It cost us $11,000. And now it's failed again, so we're not tracking gallons, so we have no idea how much is going to who. The real issue, let's just like rip the Band-Aid off and solve it, you know, and how are we gonna do that? Is it a new pump? Is it a new tank? What is it?
How big a tank? Let's start with that.
The village, I think, has barely any diesel anymore and
But how big a tank?
Our tank is 2,500 gallons, isn't it?
ours is 1,000 gallons. I think the village needs like a 250 or a 330, which would cost about $2,000.
So it's a double line tank. If I remember correctly, the tank we got from the fuel vendor at the time.
Which was coarse.
I don't even remember who it was. No, it was Harvey.
Really?
County oil.
County Oil. So in my opinion, there are 2 possible solutions. One would be to separate town and village. The other would be to fix the goddamn pump. So that it's operating correctly and the key system is, you know, those things should be bulletproof. I mean, they really, they use those things all over the place.
Why don't we just have a stupid card reader? Every truck has a card.
Well, this is the thing.
We could do that too.
I think you guys are bringing great points. But when you get a new pump, it's gonna cost $1,000, $1,500 to put in a new tank with a pump for the village might be $2,500. You know, so there's an opportunity here that's like for a minimal, if we're gonna spend 1,000, how do you want to solve the issue, right?
Do we know that pump can't be repaired?
Last I haven't talked to Jason yet today, but last week, he just called, said it happened, and he was waiting I was gonna fill me in on what the next steps were. So.
It's not rocket science for crying out loud. I mean, you can replace the pump or the mechanism that reads a card or a key. I mean, every time you go to the stupid gas pump, put your credit card in.
Do you want me to just get a different, I mean, I'm sure if it's less than 3,000, I'll buy a new pump and get it done, but then I'm gonna have to go to the village and ask for 50% of it. And
Or we just have our own stinking tank.
that would be my suggestion. Is it time to just?
How about we have one tank? And there's two pumps. Each has a meter.
That would work too.
That's pretty simple. Village could keep the pump that's there. I mean, I've been on this. Beth and I toured the sheriff's department.
One tank.
And we were not on the board for very long. And I saw their setup and I said, we should do that.
We need our own
I've,
tank.
I've been on it for a long time. The sheriff's department has a card reader. You go to Philip Cruiser, you scan it. And there's a piece of paper, and you write down your name, the amount of gallons that you had. So not only do you have the card reader data and your delivery data, but you have your filled out data. So you have 3 forms.
Are you talking about going to their pump or to
No.
a?
To copy their system. Theirs is for gas.
Yeah, so here's another possibility, and the village used to do this with Maple Fields for their gas. Because they had gas vehicles. They had cards that they could go to Maple Fields and you plug the card in and Maple Fields cut a deal with us for so much a gallon.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so they were buying it at Maple Fields and they could buy it any time of day or night because using their card, you know, it was 24 hours a day.
As far as I know, Morrisville does the same thing.
Yeah.
Each
So
vehicle-
I mean, there's one way to think about it is get rid of the tank and the pump altogether and go to a card system with execute an agreement with Jolly's or Maple Fields or.
We're still have diesel tax exemption, so it wouldn't, I think the price per gallon wouldn't be.
Yeah, I mean, and they gave us a special price per gallon on the gasoline, and because we're municipal, we're tax exempt, it all came through as one bill. You know, that Rosemary paid.
Sure, fill right up over there to Maple Fields. Tractor trailers there all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's
trucks.
it's not really that
Difficult.
difficult.
I wonder if the state fills up there, because I see state trucks in there.
Yeah, I'm sure they probably do. I've seen the same thing. And they probably, every truck has its own card.
They figured we had $11,000 worth of fuel, and that's why we had to pay that.
It was over a very long period of time. And that number came from Rosemary, not the village. Which, I mean, I guess she's a shared employee, so say it's appropriate. Let's talk about more shared
We're
things.
exceeding the course, but I like.
Yeah,
I like
something's
the-
gotta be figured out.
You got, I'm leaning toward each truck has card. Cause that would allow us to actually,
So this week, can I research that option at Maple Fields? And can I
Yeah.
research the cost of a separate tank?
Yes.
I'm gonna just make a suggestion. That's a great idea, but I think you're gonna have plenty on your plate just to get us a budget by next Monday. So if you could defer that, I think it's a great idea. I'm just saying, maybe not this week, maybe,
Yeah.
the week after or
yeah.
2 weeks from now, because
Yeah.
I keep
After
going
the
back
budget
to,
is done, then
yeah.
we can fiddle with that.
that's what I keep coming back to is, man, we're up against it on the budget here.
The AM 376, that can be zeroed out. That was a question I asked before too. Which is the estimated final for invasive species management.
So, how do you, zero? One of the things that we did last year is we put in the worst case scenario for expenditures. And so do you want me to go through the ones that I know aren't gonna happen? Like the clock tower, I didn't zero out, but I zeroed out next year's budget.
I mean, we budgeted $0. And we had an estimated expense of 5,000.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Didn't really make sense.
Thanks. I didn't think. Yeah.
The paving. I'd really like to know what the actual cost is. And it kind of, Katie Wynn couples with a larger conversation that we're not gonna have time to get sidetracked tonight, but we should throw up that road and see if we could take the other road over.
I took a tour with Mark last week. We drove around, not this one, because of Mark, highway Mark. And looked at Katie Wynn, and it makes a lot of sense. They dump a ton of salt on that little hill. And it would only disrupt like one small section of the park. And it seems like the Harvey might even want to abandon that whole hill in itself too, because if we took over the other side, it would be so much easier for everyone in and out of there.
You know what we're talking about?
You're talking Katie, I thought you were gonna say
The
Harvey.
two ways indicate
Yeah,
when you're talking about the furthest from
Correct.
the village versus the closest.
Yes,
Because Mark does that with the CV, and he pounds that with salt. It
Well,
uses-
yes, because people are gonna slide down that right under Route 15.
because you
right.
can't plow it.
You can't back up, because if you plow into that, you can't back up into Route 15. And the whole thing is a nightmare, where if it was the other road, he could just pull right in. And then,
That's a larger conversation. Where'd the $200,000 estimate for Katie Wynn and Wilson
I
come?
think, Jason got that from Paul.
Could you check with him? Cause I talked with him earlier today and I don't know if that's accurate, but we just need to plan accordingly, I guess.
So
Can you
this,
tell me what line you're looking at?
377.
Blacktop maintenance, so it's anything that's with Katie one, but, okay,
so,
Did he print the notes on the side?
okay, well,
he wants to. 110,000 is gonna go from this year, there's no paving that's gonna be done. He wants to take 110 plus 12, 122, and put it into that newly created reserve fund. One of my conversations with Rosemary on Thursday is counting for that fund. So we can show it. And so that we propose fiscal year 26. We're still gonna spend the whole 12 and 110. But it's gonna, whatever doesn't go towards the paving project is gonna go towards the fund, right? It's kind of the same as like, using the same process that we use now for the office capital equipment. We budget 30,000 every year and we spend 30,000, but we really only spend like 2,000 or 3,000. And then the remaining 28,000 or 27,000 gets put into the building capital reserve or whatever. And so it's under the same idea that we're just always gonna budget 122,000, but it's gonna move right into that reserve fund. Until we have a better process, that's just how it's shown. And maybe that process should be established before with this budget.
I think it probably goes again to the question of the specific wording of the reserve fund, and I don't remember what it was.
It goes to, well, it goes to that, but it also goes to like. Well, the process is same, I hear what you're saying, if we're planning on spending $200,000 on blacktop, because there was a plan and there was a number given. That's fine, let's show spending 200,000, let's show 78 coming in. And we could explain that, right?
So show. Okay.
I mean, how are we showing 78,000 coming in from the reserve fund?
Well, this is why where I need Rosemary.
Yeah,
So because there's no line in it, that's the part that we need to show. There's no revenue side of that. And so Jason wants to spend 200,000 on saving in 26. And of that, he wants to use 122,000 from 25 that goes in. And so do you want to show this here to be 200,000
What places does he wanna pay?
like that?
that was what we just talked about.
Number
The
one,
81 entrance in Wilson Road.
that's gonna cost that much,
I think it's gonna cost more than that.
just the entrance to Katie Wynn.
I just
Yeah,
got,
Well, it's from Route 15 up to the turnaround,
Jason just got me.
and that has to be all reclaimed and.
Yeah, he's trying to work out,
Crazy
when
things.
when he told me these numbers. I think he's trying to work with, I believe it's Pike, to come in to pave at the same time they're paving with Hyde Park or Cambridge. So that we're not paying like transportation that costs as much, so they're paving one spot and then moving right into the other spot.
Are they gonna be repaving 15 anyways? Or that is,
The town should never been in the middle of Cape anyway.
What we should do with this,
Can we give it to the village?
it sounds like Jason's gonna be at our next meeting. Maybe can this way, I'll have Rosemary's reserve
Yeah.
question solved. And then this way Jason can be here to answer
He's
about.
buried in evergreen
just
land.
write it down on your list.
Yeah, you could. Sure,
I just wanna.
I'm just gonna ask him where he got the
I
quote.
mean, I
from,
wanna
guess.
ask for a plan, like a long-term, what's your plan to pave, like, you're doing this next year, what are you gonna do after that? And this is where we're at, it's the start of but we need, just like cemetery, just like Holcomb House, we need some longer visioning. And paving is a big one, because it's hundreds of thousands versus 7,000.
So somewhere in the archived files was a paving plan that was an Excel spreadsheet. And it was kind of neat because it also allowed you to put in roads. So you could put in the width of the road, the length of the road, and the thickness of the pavement, and it would generate a cost
Based on
As
that
you entered
price.
your.
based on that. I spent a long time developing that spreadsheet. And we had we had a history of all of the roads that had been paved and their costs at the time. So it probably wouldn't take that much to update that.
No, it'd be really fun to put, you know how you can make a column that says days past? It'd be really cool to have like, years since paved or something. So then it would like auto flag for you.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that I did that spreadsheet was because the select board at the time said, well, are we putting enough money aside for paving? And I said, no way.
Yeah.
And they said, well, show me. And so I developed a spreadsheet, and we should have been, to pave the miles of road that we had. At the time, we should have been budgeting in like 175,000, we were budgeting 100,000.
Yeah.
And it's only gotten worse because.
Is it like an 8-year cycle, a 10-year cycle, a 5-year cycle? Do you have any? what's the
Well,
cycle?
I think for the purposes of that spreadsheet, I was figuring 8 to 10 years. Because, typically pavement doesn't last longer than 10 years. But anyway, somewhere in my archive files, there's a spreadsheet that's paving plan.
Yeah,
And the valuable piece of that is it's got the history of when all the roads were paved. The other valuable piece of it is the plan that we came up with was based on a road surface management system plan, which was going out and surveying all of the roads and coming up with a priority list of paving based on the road condition and the road assessment. And road service management system is no longer going, but I'm sure there are other programs out there that are similar
yeah.
still.
And now things have it used to be by road, now it's by segment, because paving's gotten so expensive. You're now tackling sections of road.
Did we skip 10? Or did you guys do that while I was there?
That one is just, I don't.
You would have it.
Oh, yes. Animal control expenses, I think that could come down to 5, that's just like a really quick one.
So that I raised because there's still gonna be, there's the $5,000 annual. There's a $25 a day, plus there's the hourly for our ACOs.
But our hourly ACOs aren't under animal control officer expenses up higher.
I don't know. Are they?
We were budgeting $4,500 for that.
So, the 20, okay, so I guess,
$25 a day, do we think we're gonna have
how much would you? like
dogs
to
in a
do?
kennel for? I don't know, what's 1,000 divided by 25?
Doesn't take long.
Doesn't,
What-
2,000 extra, that'd be 80 days. $1,000.
So,
Well, in theory, if somebody picks up a dog, they have to pay the fines, including the kennel fees, but in reality, sometimes that doesn't happen.
We eat it,
What would you like for a number there?
We release them before payment?
the board.
Well, like this case of the dog that's gonna be euthanized,
Yeah,
you ain't gonna get the money from anybody on that one.
no, but if they took up my dog, I paid, I would expect that they would say, oh, and you owe us $100 before you leave with the dog.
And that used to be part of the protocol was you can't get a dog until you pay the fines and penalties.
How many days do you think we'll house the dog next year?
I don't know, put 500 because nobody answered the question. I have no idea. We housed this dog was housed for several months and Jazzy was housed for several months. Should that have happened?
Yeah, but if they're all under direct report to you, we shouldn't be housing dogs. for
You're
that
gonna
long.
squeeze that.
It's gonna be 11 days max. I'm gonna be sniping dogs left and right.
You're gonna be carrying a sidearm.
I'd be known as the dog killing.
Don't laugh. I had an animal control officer in Georgia that used to carry a 45 and he used it.
The 223.
Self-defense.
Where is
Yeah.
the animal control? Oh, there it is, services.
Yeah, we budget for animal control officer and health officer under salaries. And we habitually over budget there.
Why-
What's that?
That's really interesting.
What do you need?
Computer support services,
Yeah, I don't disagree.
I think that contract's gonna be up this year. Or no, if
Let's get to them. Tech group, you know, I kind of passed that off to Eric and Rosemary with the tech group, and Eric extended the contract till December. I think it's actually gonna be up in a couple of weeks here. Do you want me to, how, again, and this is I don't think the village is interested in working with anybody else. I talked with Eric today and they're working on keeping them as a shared service, even though they're gonna have a new extension for their emails. Do you want, if I put out the bid for an RFP for tech services, it'll clearly be over 3,000. It's gonna be different, probably a different company than the village if we don't use the tech group.
these are
See
just
what I'm saying?
conversations, we gotta kinda.
This is, I mean, I'm not saying it's a problem, but right now there's just a lot of like enmeshment. Like getting divorced from your cousin or something.
It is a problem.
It's something that's gonna come up next meeting. We either need to budget more or, maybe call the current vendor and see what maybe we should be budgeting, because we're gonna need to put out an RFP.
Well, I mean, one of the problems we have right now is
What
we're
line is that,
using the
Evan?
same server,
223.
right?
Yeah, and that needs to be, that's gonna come out of that 30,000. Office capital expense,
A new server.
yeah, which is gonna be 12 to 15 grand.
And the village is gonna pay half of that, or is that a point in time where we should think about? Let's have our own server and the village can take over, whatever, I don't know. I mean,
I think as long as we're in the same building, seems to be a reasonable shared expense.
but we're very probably gonna end up with separate treasurers for the town and
Well,
village.
Here we go, number 10, that's my last question is. I think we can probably do. The town will be okay, the full-time clerk treasurer. Full-time. Assistant clerk treasurer, administrative work. Part or full-time administrator. And 0.6 CDS. I don't think we're gonna increase any costs on the town side. I think the village side, even though we share 2.0 of the 4 people down there, I think they're gonna have a hard time filling it with just 2 people, where the town will be okay. And that's something we should.
So is that your question related to estimated salary sheet, I take it?
That's the one, number 10, yeah, what will the office look like in terms of staffing next year?
I think that's a full budget meeting conversation.
I just don't wanna lose it, that's why it's there, so we should be thinking.
I mean, yeah, we have to go over all these sheets, like. At least 3 of them.
How much you say the server was gonna be?
The first verbal quote was 12,000, and I had one as high as 20. It depends. I know.
The CPI increase. As set at 3.5, I'm not sure if you,
No, I haven't seen that yet. That's done.
and. Plug it in there for more accurate, we gotta decide what to carry, we kinda already said we would do
Yeah.
it this way, but.
I think that came out on December 11th, is that right? 3.5 is that?
You know when it came out?
The November CPI, I think, comes out in like December 10th or 11th.
And I guess the hours are a big thing. I mean, right now. We're only budgeting for 32 hours a week for the TA.
The town administrator, but I'm doing 40.
So should we budget for 40?
I was gonna suggest that that's something that we should all think about carefully, and maybe when we come back for our next meeting, we can weigh in on that, but does everybody understand what Evan's talking about? Okay. And the other thing kind of related to that one was the assessor services, did a decision get made whether that could be another one of those things that Rosemary does a separate accounting on, showing the full costs of the interlocal agreement, and then our budget only shows the direct costs associated with Justin Services? Everybody understand the nuance that I'm talking about there?
Sounds like it's just booking.
Well, it is, in the way that they're doing it right now, they're actually, when Justin submits a bill, he actually breaks it out to who the hours go to. So they're doing that right now as part of the payroll process. So that would kind of track with how we show it in the budget, I guess.
The full bill and then trying to.
You said 3.
Yes, we're getting reimbursed.
I
We're
don't
getting
know.
reimbursed.
Hopefully we get some kind of a deal for Rosemary's.
We do,
Annoying.
we do. We get an admin fee from each of them. Yeah.
Yeah, was this for the Northeastern?
But that's another one of those things that I almost think would be more transparent to have it,
Yeah.
you
I
know,
think that
set
ought-
aside outside of the annual operating budget to, because you can actually see,
Yeah.
you know, what we were getting
Versus-
reimbursed.
Yeah, versus block numbers in out. Let's
Right.
See what's really what the out is.
Yeah, so I think the way you've got it set up right now is Justin's labor is showing up in the estimated salaries, right?
Right there, Mike.
Yeah,
Regional resource.
so I guess I would just
Yeah.
check that and make sure that that's the right number for his salary. The other piece I would check on
Health insurance,
make
make sure that that's accurately.
Yeah, and we have at least 2 employees that perhaps I can talk with you outside of the context of the meeting that you should just double check and make sure that we're budgeting enough for insurance.
And we're billing enough. To the other.
Right.
It's outside the meeting context.
I take that back.
Yeah, so here's, making sure that this number is divided.
Yeah, just double check. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying check it and
Well, it's interesting, it's like on budgeting, we pay the full amount for insurance. And budgeting that we pay the full amount for retirement off of the salary. No, it's not, we're only budgeting the portion of it for retirement.
retirement and social security should be based on the salary in that spreadsheet. So that should be right.
But insurance, we're budgeting the full amount,
Right.
and
Yeah.
that should be divided out.
That should be divided in. And I would just double check on that to make, because he increased his hours under the contract, so just make sure that the amount that is in there is A, consistent with the plan that he's gonna take, and B, that, because he's over 30 hours, and if he's over 30 hours, that's full Benny for health insurance.
I don't even know. Oh, yeah, I don't even know. Rosemary knows that.
Yeah.
That might have been an oversight for the last couple of months.
Yeah, I would just check it for the budget, just to make sure that it's right.
That could add up to a month.
Yeah.
Yep.
We good for now?
Got all your tasks.
The only other one that I
Are
was
you
gonna
gonna,
mention was, I think at that last board meeting, we said we were gonna use Eben's draft of the capital plan. How difficult would it be to import his reserve fund?
I would love
Yeah.
that. When I can't find, for whatever reason, you emailed it, but I can't find your draft. So when I started to tackle that today, I have all of Jason's numbers, some of them, but then you already started it. I can't find that.
it's in the. I can try to find the link. You're the one that created it and just copy and pasted it into Office 365.
You know, you mentioned that too. I don't know where those links, like, I don't know that, I don't ever like consciously made a link. So that's what I don't understand.
Is it a shared file?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Is that-
Yeah.
Could you save it as something random and send it if possible?
Sure, yeah,
If you could look into it, I'd really appreciate it, because it would just solve the starting over, make it a little easier.
Yeah, it'd make it a lot easier for you, and then you can just double check the links between the
Correct.
cells to make sure those are right. And you said that yours has been updated to the equipment we intend to purchase in 26, right?
yeah,
Okay,
And then I have
Maybe
new
I don't
numbers
understand the
from.
question.
so then it really should just be a matter of
Okay.
making the link between that sheet and the general budget. It should be good.
3 links.
3 numbers, yeah.
They're big though, you know,
If you have new numbers on a salt truck or whatever, you'll have to build that in.
you don't have a number yet from International.
What do you have new numbers on?
Excavator, cat numbers. Excavator.
That's a larger conversation.
Yeah. We haven't pulled the trigger on excavator, no excavator yet.
Oh, yeah.
Not at all. When we talked about it, we said Tom could propose some drafts.
Loader backhoe, new excavator, Jason's just came back. Caterpillar. That might be
Those are the ones that came in before last meeting.
on the second, yeah, right before.
Yeah. Those are the ones that I had told you I built in the numbers for Cal.
You already put these in,
Yeah.
awesome.
Do we? I guess this is a Tom question, it might be a Rosemary question. So with the pilot number, I fully anticipate that our CLA is gonna go down again.
No,
You tried the school budget.
If it does, it's gonna lower our pilot payment according to the existing formula. I'm really hopeful that we can get our legislative delegation to adjust that. But they're not gonna get that done before we have to build a budget. So what I guess what I'm suggesting is, can we come up, I think you're carrying a 447 number in there now. My guess is it's gonna be lower than that.
420.
Who knows? It all depends on what happens
Oh, yeah.
with our CLA and whether or not,
When will we know our CLA?
well, that's a Rosemary Tom
Yeah.
question. Do we know what our CLA is yet?
I think it should come out by now. It's the equalization study based on last April's grand list.
Right,
So it should be, I think it's November, probably already have it.
yeah, I mean, so if we could figure that out and we know what the college gives to property valuation and review for the insured values,
86 million, we know that, 86,500,000. Mike and I looked at that today.
is it the same number?
I think so.
I thought you said 7. 76 million or something to me today.
86.
Well, you take 86 million and times it by 1%. Then you multiply it by the CLA,
Well, that.
and that's how you get to 641. And if our CLA goes, it's gonna be less than it was last year. It's gotta be.
If it came out in November, you could have that.
Yeah,
It was 75, right?
74.15. Yeah.
But your meeting was Rosemary Thursday, you said, so that could be wrapped up for next.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is if you've got the ability to take those numbers, you could project what our actual pilot's gonna be, and I'm guessing it's gonna be less than 447.
Maybe 447.
As it stands, we're looking
Why
at
would you?
5.6% increase.
Well, that's what we're expecting.
As
If
it's.
you put 420,
Tom with
you're gonna have to increase taxes.
with 447
I
in,
know.
we're at 5.
And if the legislature, that's based on the current formula.
I understand that, but we had a surplus this year. So
Somebody gonna retire.
why would
That
we
goes
do
up
that
to
if
6.9%.
we increase our taxes
Doesn't matter.
more than we're already gonna have to?
I mean.
Well, that doesn't, I mean,
I can make up
we can
2%
apply
of
more
that.
of the surplus
No,
to
no.
reduce taxes. But
I
if
can
for
make up
some
1%
reason
of
we
that.
don't get,
If the answer.
The
of public,
447,
how the money's coming in.
and we get 420,
I already balanced it. I moved
wouldn't we
it.
want to show as accurate as we can get?
Right, but
So I have
still,
it coming
we're
in
talking a big
next year
increase in taxes.
under
right now.
Rosemary, because I needed that to sort
I
that out,
realize that,
and I have it going out.
That's 11%.
which is why we need to get the
We're having too
year-end
many,
figures in there.
too many sidebar conversations.
And then it's coming out in the same year, so it's a net zero.
Yeah.
Where else can we find money to cut out?
Well, what's really, so this is really cool, so now I'm gonna take this, so all these, there's a few things left. I think then if I can come up with the number, I already started working down here on the tax rate part. Where I started updating these. This is the change. We went over this last year, and I don't remember. The the amount, the estimated change to the tax rate doesn't match the top part at the top, and I can't remember why.
It's a multiplication. It's a difference in the grand list.
I think I concluded after having that conversation that there was an error in the formulas, and that if we change the formulas, I'll have to go back and look, because I think I concluded at the end that it should equal
Well, there's a note here.
the percent.
There's these numbers, and then it says, this now matches line 5, but it doesn't now match line 5.
But that's because of all the cells that were added between.
I'm sure, yeah.
having it down.
Yeah, it's.